A plan. Outside in the low-ceilinged hallway, Min dug her nails into her palms at the first piercing cry from the room. She took a step toward the door before she could stop herself, and when she did stop, tears sprang up in her eyes. Light, help me. All I can do is make it worse. Egwene, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Feeling worse than useless, she picked up her skirts and ran, and Egwene's screams pursued her. She could not make herself stay, and leaving made her feel a coward. Half blind with weeping, she found herself in the street before she knew it. She had intended to go back to her room, but now she could not do it. She could not stand the thought that Egwene was being hurt while she sat warm and safe under the next roof. Scrubbing the tears from her eyes, she swept her cloak around her shoulders and started down the street. Every time she cleared her eyes, new tears began trickling along her cheeks. She was not accustomed to weeping openly, but then she was not accustomed to feeling so helpless, so useless. She did not know where she was going, only that it had to be as far as she could reach from Egwene's cries. "Min!" The low-pitched shout brought her up short. At first, she could not make out who had called. Relatively few people walked the street this close to where the Damane were housed. Aside from a lone man trying to interest two Seanchan soldiers in buying the picture he would draw of them with his coloured chalks, everyone local tried to step along quickly without actually appearing to run. A pair of Suldam strolled by, Damane trailing behind with eyes down. The Seanchan women were talking about how many more Maras Damane they expected to find before they sailed. Min's eyes passed right over the two women in long fleece coats, then swung back in wonder as they came toward her. Nynaeve, Elaine, none other. Nynaeve's smile was strained. Both women had tight eyes, as if they fought worried frowns. Min thought she had never seen anything as wonderful as the sight of them. "That colour becomes you," Nynaeve continued. "You should have taken up dresses long since, though I've thought of breeches myself since I saw them on you." Her voice sharpened as she drew close enough to see Min's face. "What is the matter? You've been crying," Elaine said. "Has something happened to Egwene?" Min gave a start and looked back over her shoulder. A Suldam and Damane came down the steps she had used and turned the other way, toward the stables and horseyards. Another woman with the lightning panels on her dress stood at the top of the stairs, talking with someone still inside. Min grabbed her friends by the arms and hurried them down the street toward the harbour. "It's dangerous for you two here. Light, it's dangerous for you to be in Falme. There are Damane everywhere, and if they find you—" You do know what Damane are? Oh, you don't know how good it is to see you both. I imagine about as half as good as it is to see you, Nynaeve said. Do you know where Egwene is? Is she in one of those buildings? Is she all right? Min hesitated a fraction before saying, "She's as well as can be expected." Min could see it all too well if she told them what was happening to Egwene right that moment. Nynaeve was as likely as not to go storming back in an attempt to stop it. Light, let it be over by now. Light, make her bend her stubborn neck just once before they almost break it first. I don't know how to get her out, though. I found a ship captain who I think will take us if we can reach his ship with her. He won't help unless we make it that far, and I cannot say I blame him, but I have no idea how to do even that much. A ship, Nynaeve said thoughtfully. I had meant to simply ride east, but I must say I've worried about it. As nearly as I could make out, we would have to be almost off Tommen Head before we were clear of Seanchan patrols completely, and then there's supposed to be fighting of some sort on Ormoth Plain. I never thought of a ship. We have horses, and we do not have money for passage. How much does this man want? Min shrugged. I never got that far. We don't have any money either. I thought I could put off paying until after we sail. Afterwards. Well, I don't think he'll put into any port where there are Seanchan. Wherever he threw us off, it would have to be better than here. The problem is convincing him to sail at all. He wants to, but they patrol off the harbour too, and there is no way of telling if there's a domain on one of their ships until it's too late. Give me a domain of my own on my deck, he says, and I will sail this instant. Then he starts talking about drafts and shoals and lee shores. I don't understand any of that, but as long as I smile and nod every now and then, he keeps talking, and I think if I can keep him talking long enough, he'll talk himself into sailing. She drew a shuddering breath. Her eyes started stinging again. Only I don't think there's time to let him talk himself into it anymore. Nynaeve, they're going to send Egwene back to Seanchan, and soon. Elaine gasped. But why? She is able to find ore, Min said miserably. A few days, she says, and I don't know if a few days is enough for this man to convince himself to sail. Even if it is, how do we take that shadow-spawned collar off her? How do we get her out of the house? I wish Rand were here. Elaine sighed, and when they both looked at her, she blushed and quickly added, Well, he does have a sword. I wish we had somebody with a sword. 10 of them. 100. It isn't swords or brawn we need now, Nynaeve said, but brains. Men usually think with the hair on their chests. She touched her chest absently, as if feeling something through her coat. Most of them do. We would need an army, Min said. A large army. The Seanchan were outnumbered when they faced the Taraboners and the Domani, and they won every battle easily, from what I hear. She hurriedly pulled Nynaeve and Elaine to the opposite side of the street as a Domani and Suldam climbed past them on the other side. She was relieved there was no need for urging. The other two watched the linked women go as warily as she. Since we don't have an army, the 3 of us will have to do it. I hope one of you can think of something I haven't. I've racked my brains, and I always stumble when it comes to the Adam, the leash and collar. Suldam don't like anyone watching too closely when they open them. I think I can get you inside, if that will help. One of you, anyway. They think of me as a servant, but servants may have visitors, as long as they keep to the servants' quarters. Nynaeve wore a thoughtful frown, but her face cleared almost immediately, taking on a purposeful look. Don't you worry, Min. I have a few ideas. I have not spent my time here idly. You take me to this man. If he is any harder to handle than the village council with their backs up, I will eat this coat. Elaine nodded, grinning, and Min felt the first real hope she had had since arriving in Falme. For an instant, Min found herself reading the auras of the other 2 women. There was danger, but that was to be expected, and new things too. Among the images she had seen before, it was like that sometimes. A man's ring of heavy gold floated above Nynaeve's head, and above Elaine's, a red-hot iron and an axe. They meant trouble, she was sure, but it seemed distant, somewhere in the future. Only for a moment did the reading last, and then all she saw was Elaine and Nynaeve watching her expectantly. It's down near the harbour, she said. The sloping street became more crowded the further down they went. Street peddlers rubbed elbows with merchants who had brought wagons in from the inland villages and would not go out again until winter had come and gone. Hawkers with their trays called to the passers-by. Falmen in embroidered cloaks brushed past farm families in heavy fleece coats. Many people had fled here from villages further from the coast. Min saw no point to it. They had leaped from the possibility of a visit from the Seanchan to the certainty of Seanchan all around them. But she had heard what the Seanchan did when they first came to a village, and she could not blame the villagers too much for fearing another appearance. Everyone bowed when Seanchan walked past, or a curtained palanquin was carried by up the steep street. Min was glad to see Nynaeve and Elaine knew about the bowing. Bare-chested bearers paid no more mind to the people who bent themselves than did arrogant armoured soldiers, but failure to bow would surely catch their eyes. They talked a little as they moved down the street, and she was surprised at first to learn they had been in the town only a few days less than Egwene and herself. After a moment, though, she decided it was no wonder they had not met earlier, not with the crowds in the streets. She had been reluctant to spend time further from Egwene than was necessary. There was always the fear that she would go for her allowed visit and find Egwene gone. And now she will be, unless Nynaeve can think of something. The smell of salt and pitch grew heavy in the air, and gulls cried, wheeling overhead. Sailors appeared in the throng, many still barefoot despite the cold. The inn had been hastily renamed the 3 Plum Blossoms, but part of the word Watcher still showed through the slapdash paintwork on the sign. Despite the crowds outside, the common room was little more than half full. Prices were too high for many people to afford time sitting over ale. Roaring fires on hearths at either end of the room warmed it, and the fat innkeeper was in his shirt-sleeves. He eyed the 3 women, frowning, and Min thought it was her Seanchan dress that stopped him from telling them to leave. Nynaeve and Elaine, in their farm women's coats, certainly did not look as if they had money to spend. The man she was looking for was alone at a table in a corner, in his accustomed place, muttering into his wine. "Do you have time to talk, Captain Doman?" she said. He looked up, brushing a hand across his beard, when he saw she was not alone. She still thought his bare upper lip looked odd with the beard. "So you do bring friends to drink up my coin, do you?" "Well, that Seanchan lord bought my cargo, so coin I have." "Sit." Elaine jumped as he suddenly bellowed, "Innkeeper, mulled wine here." "It's all right," Min told her, taking a place on the end of one of the benches at the table. "He only looks and sounds like a bear." Elaine sat down on the other end, looking doubtful. "A bear, do I be?" Dermot laughed. "Maybe I do. But what of you, girl? Have you given over thought of leaving?" "That dress do look Seanchan to me." "Never," Min said fiercely, but the appearance of a serving girl with the steaming, spiced wine made her fall silent. Domon was just as wary. He waited until the girl had gone with his coins before saying, "Fortune prick me, girl, I mean no offence. Most people only want to go on with their lives, whether their lords be Seanchan or any other." Nynaeve leaned her forearms on the table. "We also want to go on with our lives, Captain, but without any Seanchan. I understand you intend to sail soon." "I would sail today if I could," Domon said glumly. "Every 2 or 3 days the Turak do send for me to tell him tales of the old things I have seen. Do I look a gleeman to you? I did think I could spin a tale or two and be on my way, but now I think when I no entertain him any longer, it be an even wager whether he do let me go or have my head cut off. The man do look soft, but he be as hard as iron and as cold-hearted." "Can your ship avoid the Seanchan?" Nynaeve asked. "Fortune prick me, could I make it out of the harbour without a damonet, rip spray to splinters, I can. If I do know, let a Seanchan ship with a daemony come too close once I do make the sea. There be shoal waters all along this coast, and spray do have a shallow draught. I can take her into waters those lumbering Seanchan hulks can no risk. They must be wary of the winds close inshore this time of year, and once I do have spray—" Nynaeve cut him off. "Then we will take passage with you, Captain. There will be 4 of us, and I will expect you to be ready to sail as soon as we're aboard." Domon scrubbed a finger across his upper lip and peered into his wine. "Well, as to that, there still do be the matter of getting out of the harbour, you see. These daemoni, what if I tell you you will sail with something better than daemoni?" Nynaeve said softly. Min's eyes widened as she realized what Nynaeve intended. Almost under her breath, Elaine murmured, "And you tell me to be careful?" Domon had eyes only for Nynaeve, and they were wary eyes. "What do you mean?" he whispered. Nynaeve opened her coat to fumble at the back of her neck, finally pulling out a leather cord that had been tucked inside her dress. 2 gold rings hung on the cord. Min gasped when she saw one. It was the heavy man's ring she had seen when she read Nynaeve in the street, but she knew it was the other, slighter, and made for a woman's slender finger that made Domon's eyes bulge. A serpent biting its own tail. "You know what this means," Nynaeve said, starting to slit the serpent ring from the cord, but Domon closed his hand over it. "Put it away." His eyes darted uneasily. No one was looking at them that Min could see, but he looked as if he thought everyone was staring. "That ring do be dangerous. If it be seen, as long as you know what it means," Nynaeve said with a calm that made Min envious. She pulled the cord from Domon's hand and retied it around her neck. "I know," he said hoarsely. "I do know what it means. Maybe there do be a chance if you, 4, you say. This girl who do like to listen to my tongue wag, she do be one of the 4, I take it, and you and, he frowned at Elaine. "Surely this child is no one like you." Elaine straightened angrily, but Nynaeve put a hand on her arm and smiled soothingly at Domon. "She travels with me, Captain. You might be surprised by what we can do even before we earn the right to a ring. When we sail, you will have 3 on your ship who can fight Damane if need be." 3, he breathed. "There do be a chance. Maybe." His face brightened for a moment, but as he looked at them, it grew serious again. "I should take you to Spray right now and cast off, but fortune prick me if I can no tell you what you face here if you stay, and maybe even if you go with me. Listen to me, and mark what I do say." He took another cautious look around, and still lowered his voice and chose his words carefully. "I did see a woman who wore a ring like that taken by the Seanchan. A pretty, slender little woman she was, with a big war. a big man with her who did look as if he did know how to use his sword. One of them must have been careless, for the Seanchan did have an ambush laid for them. The big man put 6-7 soldiers on the ground before he did die himself. The woman. Oh, oh, oh. 6 domain they did put around her, stepping out of the alleys of a sudden. I did think she would. Oh, oh. Do something, you know what I mean, but oh, oh, oh. I know nothing of these things. One moment she did look as if she would destroy them all. Then a look of horror did come on her face, and she did scream. They cut her off from the true source. Elaine's face was white. No matter, Nynaeve said calmly, we will not allow the same to be done to us. Mayhap it will be as you say, but I will remember it until I die. Reimer, help me. That is what she did scream. And one of the Daemonae did fall down crying, and they did put one of those collars on the neck of the E. Oh, oh, woman, and I. Oh, oh. I did run. He shrugged and rubbed his nose and peered into his wine. I have seen 3 women taken, and I have no stomach for it. I would leave my aged grandmother standing on the dock to sail from here, but I did have to tell you. Egwene said they have 2 prisoners, Min said slowly. Reimer a yellow, and she didn't know who the other is. Nynaeve gave her a sharp look, and she fell silent, blushing. From the look on Doman's face, it had not furthered their cause any to tell him the Seanchan held 2 Aes Sedai, not just 1. Yet abruptly he stared at Nynaeve and took a long gulp of wine. Do that be why you are here? To free? Oh, those 2. You did say there would be 3 of you. You know what you need to know, Nynaeve told him briskly. You must be ready to sail on the instant any time in the next 2 or 3 days. Will you do it, or will you remain here to see if they will cut off your head after all? There are other ships, Captain, and I mean to have passage assured on one of them today. Min held her breath. Under the table, her fingers were knotted. Finally, Domon nodded. I will be ready. When they returned to the street, Min was surprised to see Nynaeve sag against the front of the inn as soon as the door closed. Are you ill, Nynaeve? She asked anxiously. Nynaeve drew a long breath and stood up straight, tugging at her coat. With some people, she said, you have to be certain. If you show them one glimmer of doubt, they'll sweep you off in some direction you don't want to go. Light, but I was afraid he was going to say no. Come, we have plans yet to make. There are still 1 or 2 small problems to work out. I hope you don't mind fish, Min, Elaine said. 1 or 2 small problems? Min thought as she followed them. She hoped very much that Nynaeve was not just being certain again. 5. We'll ride forth. Perrin eyed the villagers warily, self-consciously hitching at a too-short cloak embroidered on the chest and with some holes in it, not even patched, but none of them gave him a second glance, despite his strange mix of clothes and the axe on his hip. Hurin had a coat with blue spirals across the chest under his cloak, and Matt wore a pair of baggy trousers that made bunches where they were stuffed into his boots. That had been all they had been able to find that would fit back in the abandoned village. Perrin wondered if this one would be abandoned soon. Half the stone houses were empty, and in front of the inn, up the dirt street from them, 3 ox carts, loaded too heavily in great mounds and everything covered with roped canvas, stood with families gathered around them. As he watched them, huddling together and saying their goodbyes to those who were staying, at least for the time being, Perrin decided it was not lack of interest in strangers on the villagers' part. They were carefully avoiding looking at him and the others. These people had learned not to show curiosity about strangers, even strangers who were obviously not Seanchan. Strangers might be dangerous these days on Tommenhead. They had encountered the same studious indifference in other villages. There were more towns here within a few leagues of the coast, everyone holding itself independent. At any rate, they had until the Seanchan came. I say it's time to go get the horses, Matt said, before they decide to start asking questions. There has to be a first time for it. Hurin was staring at a big, blackened circle of ground that marred the brown grass of the village green. It had a weathered look, but no one had done anything to erase it. Maybe 6 or 8 months ago, he muttered, and it still stinks. The whole village council and their families. Why would they do a thing like that? Who knows why they do anything, Matt muttered. Seanchan don't seem to need a reason for killing people. None I can figure out, anyway. Perrin tried not to look at the charred patch. "Hurin, are you sure about Fane?" "Hurin?" It had been hard to make the sniffer look at anything else since they entered the village. "Hurin? What?" "Oh, Fane. Yes." Hurin's nostrils flared, and right away he wrinkled his nose. "There's no mistaking that, even old as it is. Makes a murderal smell like roses. He passed through here all right, but I think he was alone. No Trollocs anyway, and if he had any dart friends with him, they hadn't been up to much lately. There was some sort of agitation up by the inn, people shouting and pointing, not at Perrin and the other two, but at something Perrin could not see in the low hills east of the village. "Can we get the horses now?" Matt said. "That could be Seanchan." Perrin nodded, and they broke into a run for where they had tied their horses behind an abandoned house. As Matt and Hurin disappeared around the corner of the house, Perrin looked back toward the inn and stopped in astonishment. The Children of the Light were riding into town, a long column of them. He leaped after the others. "White cloaks!" They wasted only an instant staring at him in disbelief before they were scrambling into their saddles. Keeping houses between them and the main street of the village, the three galloped out of the village westward, watching over their shoulders for pursuit. Ingtar had told them to avoid anything that might slow them down, and white cloaks asking questions would certainly do that, even if they could manage answers that satisfied. Perrin kept an even closer watch than the other two. He had his own reasons for not wanting to meet white cloaks. "The axe in my hands. Light, what I wouldn't give to change that." The lightly wooded hills soon hid the village, and Perrin began to think maybe there was nothing chasing them after all. He reined in and motioned the other two to stop. When they did, eyeing him questioningly, he listened. His ears were sharper than they once had been, but he heard no sounds of hoofbeats. Reluctantly, he reached out with his mind in search of wolves. Almost immediately he found them, a small pack lying up for the day in the hills above the village they had just left. There were moments of astonishment so strong he almost thought it was his own. These wolves had heard rumors, but they had not really believed there were two legs who could talk to their kind. He sweated through the minutes it took to get past introducing himself. He gave the image of young Bull in spite of himself, and added his own smell. According to the custom among wolves, wolves were great ones for formalities on first meetings. But finally he managed to get his question through. They really had no interest in any two legs who could not talk to them, but at last they glided down to take a look, unseen by the dull eyes of the two legs. After a time, images came back to him what the wolves saw. White-cloaked men on horses crowding around the village, riding among the houses, riding around it, but none leaving, especially not westward. The wolves said all they smelled moving west was himself, and two other two-legs, with three of the hard-footed tall ones. Perrin let go the contact with the wolves gratefully. He was aware of Hurin and Matt looking at him. "They aren't following," he said. "How can you be sure?" Matt demanded. "I am," he snapped, then more softly, "I just am." Matt opened his mouth and closed it again, and finally said, "Well, if they aren't coming after us, I say we go back to Ingtar and get on Fane's trail. That dagger isn't coming any closer just standing here. We can't pick it up again this close to that village," Hurin said. "Not without risking running into white cloaks. I don't think Lord Ingtar would appreciate that, and not Verin Sedai neither." Perrin nodded. "We'll follow it on a few miles anyway, but keep a close lookout. We can't be too far from Falme now. It won't do any good to avoid the white cloaks and ride right into a Seanchan patrol." As they started out again, he could not help wondering what white cloaks were doing there. Geoffram Bornhold peered down the village street, sitting his saddle while the legions spread through the small town and surrounded it. There had been something about the heavy-shouldered man who had dashed out of sight, something that tickled his memory. Yes, of course. The lad who claimed to be a blacksmith. What was his name? Bayer pulled up in front of him, hand on heart. "The village is secured, my lord captain." Villagers in heavy sheepskin coats milled uneasily as white-cloaked soldiers herded them together near the overloaded carts in front of the inn. Crying children clung to their mothers' skirts, but no one looked defiant. Dull eyes stared out of the adult faces, waiting passively for whatever was going to happen. For that much, Bornhold was grateful. He had no real desire to make an example of any of these people, and no wish at all to waste time. Dismounting, he tossed his reins to one of the children. "See that the men are fed, Bayer." Put the prisoners in the inn with as much food and water as they can carry, then nail all the doors and shutters closed. Make them think I'm leaving some men to stand guard, yes?" Baia touched his heart again and wheeled his horse to shout orders. The herding began anew into the flat-roofed inn, while other children ransacked houses, searching for hammers and nails. Watching the sullen faces that filed past him, Bornhold thought it should be 2 or 3 days before any of them found enough courage to break out of the inn and find there were no guards. 2 or 3 days was all he needed, but he did not intend to risk alerting the Seanchan to his presence now. Leaving enough men behind to make the questioners believe his entire legion was still scattered across Almouth Plain, he had brought more than 1,000 of the children, nearly the length of Toman Head, without giving alarm, so far as he knew. 3 skirmishes with Seanchan patrols had ended quickly. The Seanchan had grown used to facing already defeated rabble. The Children of the Light had been a deadly surprise. Yet the Seanchan knew how to fight like the Dark One's hordes, and he could not help remembering the one skirmish that had cost him better than 50 men. He was still not sure which of the 2 arrow-riddled women he had stared at afterwards had been the Aes Sedai. Baia, one of Bornhold's men, handed him water in a pottery cup from one of the carts. It was icy in his throat. The gaunt-faced man swung down from his saddle. "Yes, my Lord Captain. When I engage the enemy, Baia," Bornhold said slowly, "you will not take part. You will watch from a distance, and you will carry word to my son of what happens." "But my Lord Captain, that is my order, child Baia," he snapped. "You will obey, yes?" Baia's back stiffened, and he stared straight ahead. "As you command, my Lord Captain." Bornhold studied him for a moment. The man would do as he was told, but it would be better to give him another reason than letting Dane know how his father had died. It was not as if he did not have knowledge that was urgently needed in Amador. Since that skirmish with the Aes Sedai, was he one of them or both? 30 Seanchan soldiers, good fighters, and 2 women cost me twice the casualties they did. Since then, he no longer expected to live to leave Toman Head. In the small chance the Seanchan did not see to it, very likely the questioners would. "When you have found my son, he should be with Lord Captain Eamon Valder near Tar Valon, and told him you will ride to Amador and report to the Lord Captain Commander. To Pedron Niall personally, child Baia. You will tell him what we have learned of the Seanchan. I will write it out for you. Be sure he understands that we can no longer count on the Tar Valon witches being content with manipulating events from the shadows. If they fight openly for the Seanchan, we will surely face them elsewhere." He hesitated. That last was the most important of all. They had to know under the Dome of Truth that for all their vaunted oaths, Aes Sedai would march into battle. It gave him a sinking feeling. A world where Aes Sedai wielded the power in battle. He was not sure that he would regret leaving it. But there was one more message he wanted carried to Amador. And, Baia, tell Pedron Niall how we were used by the questioners. "As you command, my Lord Captain," Baia said, but Bornhold sighed at the expression on his face. The man did not understand. To Baia, orders were to be obeyed whether they came from the Lord Captain or the questioners, whatever they were. "I will write that out for you to hand to Pedron Niall as well," he said. He was not sure how much good it would do in any case. A thought came to him, and he frowned at the inn, where some of his men were loudly hammering nails through shutters and doors. "Perrin," he muttered. That was his name. Perrin from the 2 Rivers. The Dark Friend, my Lord Captain, perhaps Baia. He was not entirely certain himself, but surely a man who seemed to have wolves fight for him could be nothing else. Certainly this Perrin had killed 2 of the children. I thought I saw him when we rode in, but I do not remember anyone among the prisoners who looked like a blacksmith. Their blacksmith left a month ago, my Lord Captain. Some of them were complaining that they'd have been gone before we came, if they had not had to mend their cartwheels themselves. Do you believe it was the man Perrin, my Lord Captain? Whoever it was, he is not accounted for, no? And he may carry word of us to the Seanchan. A Dark Friend would surely do so, my Lord Captain." Bornhold gulped the last of the water and tossed the cup aside. "There will be no meal for the men here, Baia. I will not let these Seanchan catch me napping, whether it is Perrin of the 2 Rivers or someone else who warns them. Mount the Legion, child Baia." Far above their heads, a huge, winged shape circled, unnoticed. In the clearing amid the hilltop thicket where they had made their camp, Rand worked the forms with his sword. he wanted to keep from thinking. He had had his chances to search with Hurin for Fane's trail. They all had, in 2s and 3s, so they would not attract attention, and they had all found nothing so far. Now they waited for Matt and Perrin to come back with the sniffer. They should have been back hours ago. Loyal was reading, of course, and there was no telling if his ear-twitching was over his book or the scouting party's lateness. But Uno and most of the Shianaran soldiers sat tensely, oiling their swords, or kept watch through the trees as if they expected Seanchan to appear any moment. Only Verin appeared unconcerned. The Aes Sedai sat on a log beside their small fire, murmuring to herself and writing in the dirt with a long stick. Every so often she would shake her head and scrub it all out with her foot and start over again. All the horses were saddled and ready to go, the Shianaran's animals each tied to a lance driven into the ground. Heron wading in the rushes, Ingtar said. He sat with his back against a tree, sliding a sharpening stone along his sword and watching Rand. You should not be bothering with that one. It leaves you completely open. For an instant, Rand balanced on the ball of one foot, sword held reversed in both hands over his head, then shifted smoothly to the other foot. Lan says it's good for developing balance. It was not easy keeping his balance. In the void, it often seemed he could maintain his equilibrium atop a rolling boulder, but he did not dare assume the void. He wanted too much to trust himself. What you practice too often, you use without thinking. You will put your sword in the other man with that if you're quick, but not before he has his through your ribs. You are practically inviting him. I don't think I could see a man face me so open and not put my sword in him, even knowing he might strike home at me if I did. It's only for balance, Ingtar. Rand wavered on one foot and had to put the other down to keep from falling. He slammed the blade into its scabbard and picked up the grey cloak that had been his disguise. It was moth-eaten and ragged around the bottom, but lined with thick fleece, and the wind was picking up, cold and out of the west. I wish they'd come back. As if his wish had been a signal, Uno spoke up with quiet urgency. Bloody horsemen coming, my lord. Scabbards rattled as men who did not already have their blades out bared them. Some leaped into their saddles, snatching up lances. The tension faded as Hurin led the others into the clearing at a trot, and came again as he spoke. We found the trail, Lord Ingtar. We followed it almost to Falme, Matt said as he dismounted. A flush in his pale cheeks seemed a mocking of health. The skin was tight over his skull. The Shianarans gathered around, as excited as he was. It's just Fane, but there isn't anywhere else he could be going. He must have the dagger. We found white cloaks too, Perrin said, swinging down from his saddle. Hundreds of them. White cloaks? Ingtar exclaimed, frowning. Here. Well, if they do not trouble us, we will not trouble them. Perhaps if the Seanchan are occupied with them, it will help us reach the Horn. His eyes fell on Veran, still seated by the fire. I suppose you will tell me I should have listened to you, Aes Sedai. The man did go to Falme. The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels, Verin said placidly. With Tavern, what happens is what was meant to happen. It may be the pattern demanded these extra days. The pattern puts everything in its place precisely, and when we try to alter it, especially if Tavern are involved, the weaving changes to put us back into the pattern as we were meant to be. There was an uneasy silence that she did not seem to notice. She sketched on idly with the stick. Now, however, I think perhaps we should make plans. The pattern has brought us to Falme at last. The Horn of Valere has been taken to Falme. Ingtar squatted across the fire from her. When enough people say the same thing, I tend to believe it, and the local people say the Seanchan do not seem to care who comes or goes in Falme. I will take Hurin and a few others into the town. Once he follows Fane's trail to the Horn. Well, then we shall see what we shall see. With her foot, Verin scrubbed out a wheel she had drawn in the dirt. In its place she drew two short lines that touched at one end. Ingtar and Hurin, and Matt, as he can sense the dagger if he comes close enough. You do want to go, don't you, Matt? Matt appeared torn, but he gave a jerky nod. I have to, don't I? I have to find that dagger. A third line made a bird track. Verin looked sideways at Rand. I'll go, he said. That is why I came. An odd light appeared in the Aes Sedai's eyes, a knowing glimmer that made him uneasy. To help Matt find the dagger, he said sharply, and Ingtar find the Horn. And Fane, he added to himself. I have to find Fane if it isn't already too late. Verin scratched a fourth line, turning the bird track to a lopsided star. "And who else?" she said softly. She held the stick poised. "Me," Perrin said, a hair before Loyal chimed in with, "I think I would like to go, too," and Uno and the other Shianarans all began clamoring to join. "Perrin spoke first," Verin said, as if that settled it. She added a fifth line and drew a circle around all five. The hair on Rand's neck stirred. It was the same wheel she had rubbed out in the first place. "5 ride forth," she murmured. "I really would like to see Falme," Loyal said. "I've never seen the Arith Ocean. Besides, I can carry the chest, if the horn is still in it." "You'd better include me at least, my lord," Uno said. "You and Lord Rand will need another sword at your backs if those bloody Seanchan try to stop you." The rest of the soldiers rumbled the same sentiment. "Do not be silly," Verin said sharply. Her stare silenced them all. "All of you cannot go. No matter how uncaring the Seanchan are about strangers, they will surely take notice of 20 soldiers, and you look like nothing else, even without armor, and 1 or 2 of you will make no difference. 5 is few enough to enter without attracting attention, and it is fitting that 3 of them should be the 3 Taveran among us. No, Loyal, you must stay behind too. There are no Ogier on Toman Head. You would attract as many eyes as all the rest put together." "What about you?" Rand asked. Verin shook her head. "You forget the Damani." Her mouth twisted around the word in distaste. "The only way I could help you would be if I channeled the power, and that would be no help at all if I brought those down on you. Even if they were not close enough to see, one might well feel a woman, or a man for that matter, channeling if care was not taken to keep the power channeled small." She did not look at Rand. To him, she seemed ostentatious in not doing so, and Mat and Perrin were suddenly intent on their own feet. "A man," Ingtar snorted. "Verin Sedai. Why add problems? We have enough already without supposing men channeling. But it would be well if you were there. If we have need of you. No, you 5 must go alone." Her foot scrubbed across the wheel, drawn in the dirt, partially obliterating it. She studied each of them in turn, intent and frowning. 5 will ride forth. For a moment it seemed that Ingtar would ask again, but meeting her level gaze, he shrugged and turned to Hurin. "How long to reach Falme?" The sniffer scratched his head. "If we left now and rode through the night, we could be there by sunrise tomorrow morning." "Then that is what we will do. I'll waste no more time. All of you, saddle your horses. Uno, I want you to bring the others along behind us, but keep out of sight and do not let anyone." "Oh." Rand peered at the sketched wheel as Ingtar went on with his instructions. It was a broken wheel now with only 4 spokes. For some reason, that made him shiver. He realized Verin was watching him, dark eyes bright and intent like a bird's. It took an effort to pull his gaze away and begin getting his things together. "You're letting fancies take you," he told himself irritably. "She can't do anything if she isn't there." Blade Master. The rising sun pushed its crimson edge above the horizon and sent long shadows down the cobblestone streets of Falme toward the harbour. A sea breeze bent the smoke of breakfast cook fires inland from the chimneys. Only the early risers were already out of doors, their breath making steam in the morning cold. Compared to the crowds that would fill the streets in another hour, the town seemed nearly empty. Sitting on an upended barrel in front of a still-closed ironmonger's shop, Nynaeve warmed her hands under her arms and surveyed her army. Min sat on a doorstep across the way, swathed in her Seanchan cloak and eating a wrinkled plum, and Elaine in her fleece coat huddled at the edge of an alley just down the street from her. A large sack, pilfered from the docks, lay neatly folded beside Min. "My army," Nynaeve thought grimly. "But there isn't anybody else." She caught sight of a Suldam and a Damain climbing the street, a yellow-haired woman wearing the bracelet and a dark woman the collar, both yawning sleepily. The few Falmen sharing the street with them averted their eyes and gave them a wide berth. As far as she could see down toward the harbour, there was not another Seanchan. She did not turn her head the other way. Instead, she stretched and shrugged as if working cold shoulders before settling back as she had been. Min tossed her half-eaten plum aside, glanced casually up the street, and leaned back on the doorpost. The way was clear there too, or she would have put her hands on her knees. Min had started rubbing her hands nervously. and Nynaeve realized that Elaine was now bouncing eagerly on her toes. If they give us away, I'll thump both their heads. But she knew if they were discovered, it would be the Seanchan who would say what happened to all three of them. She was all too aware that she had no real notion of whether what she planned would work or not. It could easily be her own failure that would give them away. Once again, she resolved that if anything went wrong, she would somehow pull attention to herself, while Min and Elaine escaped. She had told them to run if anything went wrong, and let them think she would run too. What she would do then, she did not know, except I won't let them take me alive. Please, Light, not that. Suldam and Demane came up the street until they were bracketed by the three waiting women. A dozen Falmen walked wide of the linked pair. Nynaeve gathered all of her anger, leashed ones and leash holders. They had put their filthy collar on Egwene's neck, and they would put it on hers and Elaine's if they could. She had made Min tell her how Suldam enforced their will. She was sure Min had kept some back, the worst, but what she told was enough to heat Nynaeve to white-hot fury. In an instant, a white blossom on a black, thorny branch had opened to light, to Cedar, and the one power filled her. She knew there was a glow around her, for those who could see it. The pale-skinned Suldam gave a start, and the dark Damine's mouth fell open, but Nynaeve gave them no chance. It was only a trickle of the power that she channeled, but she cracked it, a whip snapping a dust mote out of the air. The silver collar sprang open and clattered to the cobblestones. Nynaeve heaved a sigh of relief even as she leaped to her feet. The Suldam stared at the fallen collar as if at a poisonous snake. The Damine put a shaking hand to her throat, but before the woman in the lightning-marked dress had time to move, the Damine turned and punched her in the face. The Suldam's knees buckled and she almost fell. "Good for you," Elaine shouted. She was already running forward too, and so was Min. Before any of them reached the two women, the Damane took one startled look around, then ran as hard as she could. "We won't hurt you," Elaine called after her. "We are friends. Be quiet," Nynaeve hissed. She produced a handful of rags from her pocket and ruthlessly stuffed them into the gaping mouth of the still staggering Suldam. Min hastily shook out the sack in a cloud of dust and plunged it over the Suldam's head, shrouding the woman to the waist. "We are already attracting too much attention." It was true, and yet not entirely true. The four of them stood in a rapidly emptying street, but the people who had decided to be elsewhere were avoiding looking at them. Nynaeve had been counting on that, people doing their best to ignore anything that had to do with Seanchan, to gain them a few moments. They would talk eventually, but in whispers. It might take hours for the Seanchan to learn anything had happened. The hooded woman began to struggle, making rag-muffled shouts from the sack. But Nynaeve and Min threw their arms around her and wrestled her toward a nearby alley. The leash and collar trailed across the cobblestones behind them, clinking. "Pick it up," Nynaeve snapped at Elaine. "It won't bite you." Elaine took a deep breath, then gathered the silver metal gingerly, as if she feared it very well might. Nynaeve felt some sympathy, but not much. Everything rested on each of them doing as they had planned. The Suldam kicked and tried to throw herself free, but between them, Nynaeve and Min forced her along, down the alley into another, slightly wider passage behind houses, to yet another alley, and at last into a rough wooden shed that had apparently once housed 2 horses by the stalls. Few could afford to keep horses since the Seanchan came, and in a day of Nynaeve's watching, no one had gone near it. The interior had a musty dustiness that spoke of abandonment. As soon as they were inside, Elaine dropped the silver leash and wiped her hands on some straw. Nynaeve channeled another trickle, and the bracelet fell to the dirt floor. The Suldam squalled and hurled herself about. "Ready?" Nynaeve asked. The other two nodded, and they yanked the sacking off their prisoner. The Suldam wheezed, blue eyes teary from dust, but her red face was red as much from anger as from the sack. She darted to the door, but they caught her in the first step. She was not weak, yet they were 3, and when they were done, the Suldam was stripped to her shift, and lying in one of the stalls, bound hand and foot with stout cord, with another piece of cord to keep her from forcing the gag out. Soothing a puffy lip, Min eyed the lightning-panelled dress and soft boots they had laid out. "It might fit you, Nynaeve. It won't fit Elaine or me." Elaine was picking straw out of her hair. "I can see that. You were never a choice anyway, not really. They know you too well." Nynaeve hurriedly removed her own clothes. She tossed them aside and donned the Suldam's dress. Min helped with the buttons. Nynaeve wiggled her toes in the boots. They were a little tight. The dress was tight, too, across the bosom and loose elsewhere. The hem hung almost to the ground, lower than Suldam wore them, but the fit would have been even worse on any of the others. Snatching up the bracelet, she took a deep breath and closed it around her left wrist. The ends merged, and it seemed solid. It did not feel like anything except a bracelet. She had been afraid that it would. "Get the dress, Elaine." They had dyed a pair of dresses, one of hers and one of Elaine's, to the grey domain were, or as close as they could manage, and hidden them here. Elaine did not move except to stare at the open collar and lick her lips. "Elaine, you have to wear it. Too many of them have seen Min for her to do it. I would have worn it if this dress had fit you instead." She thought she would have gone mad if she had had to wear the collar. That was why she could not make her voice sharp with Elaine now. "I know," Elaine sighed. "I just wish I knew more of what it does to you." She drew her red gold hair out of the way. "Min, help me, please." Min began undoing the buttons down the back of her dress. Nynaeve managed to pick up the silver collar without flinching. There is one way to find out. With only a moment of hesitation, she bent and snapped it around the neck of the Suldam. She deserves it if anyone does, she told herself firmly. She might be able to tell us something useful anyway. The blue-eyed woman glanced at the leash trailing from her neck to Nynaeve's wrist, then glared up at her contemptuously. "It doesn't work that way," Min said, but Nynaeve barely heard. She was aware of the other woman, aware of what she was feeling, cord digging into her ankles and into her wrists behind her back, the rank fish taste of the rags in her mouth, straw pricking her through the thin cloth of her shift. It was not as if she, Nynaeve, felt these things, but in her head was a lump of sensations that she knew belonged to the Suldam. She swallowed, trying to ignore them. They would not go away, and addressed the bound woman. "I won't hurt you if you answer my questions truthfully. We aren't Seanchan, but if you lie to me..." She lifted the leash threateningly. The woman's shoulders shook, and her mouth curled around the gag in a sneer. It took Nynaeve a moment to realize the Suldam was laughing. Her mouth tightened, but then a thought came to her. That bundle of sensation inside her head seemed to be everything physical that the other woman felt. Experimentally, she tried adding to it. Eyes suddenly bulging out of her head, the Suldam gave a cry that the gag only partially stopped. Fanning her hands behind her as if trying to ward off something, she humped through the straw in a vain effort to escape. Nynaeve gaped and hastily rid herself of the extra feeling she had added. The Suldam sagged, weeping. "What? What did you do to her?" Elaine asked faintly. Min only stared, her mouth hanging open. Nynaeve answered gruffly, "The same thing Sheriam did to you when you threw a cup at Marith. Light, but this is a filthy thing." Elaine gulped loudly. "Oh, but an Adam isn't supposed to work that way," Min said. "They always claimed it won't work on any woman who cannot channel. I do not care how it is supposed to work, so long as it does." Nynaeve seized the silver metal leash right where it joined the collar and pulled the woman up enough to look her in the eyes. Frightened eyes, she saw. "You listen to me, and listen well. I want answers, and if I don't get them, I'll make you think I have had the hide off you." Stark terror rolled across the woman's face, and Nynaeve's stomach heaved as she suddenly realized the Suldam had taken her literally. If she thinks I can, it's because she knows. That is what these leashes are for. She took firm hold of herself to stop from clawing the bracelet off her wrist. Instead, she hardened her face. "Are you ready to answer me? Or do you need more convincing?" The frantic head-shaking was answer enough. When Nynaeve removed the gag, the woman only paused to swallow once before babbling, "I will not report you. I swear it. Only take this from my neck. I have gold. Take it. I swear I will never tell anyone." "Be quiet," Nynaeve snapped, and the woman shut her mouth immediately. "What is your name?" "Sita. Please. I will answer you, but please take it off. If anyone sees it on me." Sita's eyes rolled down to stare at the leash, then squeezed shut. "Please," she whispered. Nynaeve realized something. She could never make Elaine wear that collar. "Best we get on with it," Elaine said firmly. She was down to her shift too now. give me a moment to put this other dress on, and put your own clothes back on, Nynaeve said. Someone has to pretend to be a Domaine, Elaine said, or we will never reach Egwene. That dress fits you, and it cannot be Min. That leaves me, I said. Put your clothes on. We have somebody to be our leashed one. Nynaeve tugged at the leash that held Sita, and the Suldam gasped. No, no, please. If anyone sees me, she cut off at Nynaeve's cold stare. As far as I'm concerned, you are worse than a murderer, worse than a dark friend. I can't think of anything worse than you. The fact that I have to wear this thing on my wrist to be the same as you for even an hour sickens me. So if you think there is anything I'll balk at doing to you, think again. You don't want to be seen? Odd. Good. Neither do we. No one really looks at a Damane, though. As long as you keep your head down the way a leashed one is supposed to, no one will even notice you. But you had better do the best you can to make sure the rest of us aren't noticed either. If we are, you surely will be seen. And if that is not enough to hold you, I promise you I'll make you curse the first kiss your mother ever gave your father. Do we understand each other? Yes, Seta said faintly. I swear it. Nynaeve had to remove the bracelet in order for them to slide Elaine's grey-dyed dress down the leash and over Seta's head. It did not fit the woman well, being loose at the bosom and tight across the hips, but Nynaeve's would have been as bad, and too short besides. Nynaeve hoped people really did not look at Damane. She put the bracelet back on reluctantly. Elaine gathered up Nynaeve's clothes, wrapped the other dyed dress around them, and made a bundle for a woman in farm clothes to be carrying as she followed a Suldam and a Damane. Gawain will eat his heart out when he hears about this, she said, and laughed. It sounded forced. Nynaeve looked at her closely, then at Min. It was time for the dangerous part. Are you ready? Elaine's smile faded. I am ready, Min said curtly. Where are you? We are. Going, Sita said, quickly adding, if I may ask. Into the lion's den, Elaine told her. To dance with the Dark One, Min said. Nynaeve sighed and shook her head. What they are trying to say is, we are going where all the Damane are kept, and we intend to free one of them. Sita was still gaping in astonishment when they hustled her out of the shed. Bail Doman watched the rising sun from the deck of his ship. The docks were already beginning to bustle, though the streets leading up from the harbour stood largely empty. A gull perched on a piling stared at him. Gulls had pitiless eyes. Are you sure about this, Captain? Yaren asked. If the Seanchan wonder what we're all doing aboard. You just make certain there do be an axe near every mooring line, Doman said curtly. And, Yaren, do any man try to cut a line before those women are aboard, I will split his skull. What if they don't come, Captain? What if it's Seanchan soldiers instead? Settle your bowels, man. If soldiers come, I will make a run for the harbour mouth, and the light have mercy on us all. But until soldiers do come, I mean to wait for those women. Now go look as if you are no doing anything. Doman turned back to peering up into the town, toward where the Damane were held. His fingers drummed a nervous tattoo on the railing. The breeze from the sea brought the smell of breakfast cook fires to Rand's nose and tried to flap at his moth-eaten cloak, but he held it closed with one hand as Red neared the town. There had not been a coat to fit him in the clothes they had found, and he thought it best to keep the fine silver embroidery on his sleeves and the herons on his collar hidden. The Seanchan attitude toward conquered people carrying weapons might not extend to those with heron-marked swords either. The first shadows of morning stretched out ahead of him. He could just see Hurin riding in among the wagon yards and horse lots. Only one or two men moved among the lines of merchant wagons, and they wore the long aprons of wheelwrights or blacksmiths. Ingtar, the first in, was already out of sight. Perrin and Matt followed behind Rand at spaced intervals. He did not look back to check on them. There was not supposed to be anything to connect them, 5 men coming into Falme at an early hour, but not together. The horse lots surrounded him, horses already crowding the fences, waiting to be fed. Hurin put his head out from between 2 stables, their doors still closed and barred, saw Rand and motioned to him before ducking back. Rand turned the bay stallion that way. Hurin stood holding his horse by the reins. He had on one of the long vests instead of his coat, and despite the heavy cloak that hid his short sword and swordbreaker, he shivered with the cold. Lord Ingtar's back there, he said, nodding down the narrow passage. He says we'll leave the horses here and go the rest of the way on foot." As Rand dismounted, the sniffer added, "Fane went right down that street, Lord Rand. I can almost smell it from here." Rand led Red down the way to where Ingtar had already tied his own horse behind the stable. The Shienaran did not look very much a lord in a dirty fleece coat, with holes worn through the leather in several places, and his sword looked odd, belted over it. His eyes had a feverish intensity. Tying Red alongside Ingtar's stallion, Rand hesitated over his saddlebags. He had not been able to leave the banner behind. He did not think any of the soldiers would have gone into the bags, but he could not say the same for Verin, nor predict what she would do if she found the banner. Still, it made him uneasy to have it with him. He decided to leave the saddlebags tied behind his saddle. Mat joined them, and a few moments later, Hurin came with Perrin. Mat wore baggy trousers stuffed into the tops of his boots, and Perrin his too short cloak. Rand thought they all looked like villainous beggars, but they had all passed largely unnoticed in the villages. "Now," Ingtar said, "let us see what we see." They strolled out to the dirt street as if they had no particular destination in mind, talking among themselves, and ambled past the wagon yards onto sloping cobblestone streets. Rand was not sure what he himself said, much less anyone else. Ingtar's plan had been for them to look like any other group of men walking together, but there were all too few people out of doors. 5 men made a crowd on those cold morning streets. They walked in a bunch, but it was Hurin who led them, sniffing the air and turning up this street and down that. The rest turned when he did, as if that was what they had intended all along. "He's crisscrossed this town," Hurin muttered, grimacing. "His smell is everywhere, and it stinks so, it's hard to tell old from new. At least I know he's still here. Some of it cannot be older than a day or two, I'm sure." "I am sure," he added less doubtfully. A few more people began to appear. Here, a fruit peddler setting his wares on tables. There, a fellow hurrying along with a big roll of parchments under his arm, and a sketchboard slung across his back, a knife sharpener oiling the shaft of his grinding wheel on its barrow. 2 women walked by, headed the other way, one with downcast eyes and a silver collar around her neck, the other in a dress worked with lightning bolts, holding a coiled silver leash. Rand's breath caught. It was an effort not to look back at them. What was that? "Oh, oh." Mat's eyes were open wide, staring out of the hollows of his eye sockets. "Was that a Damane?" "That is the way they were described," Ingtar said curtly. "Hurin, are we going to walk every street in this shadow-cursed town?" "He's been everywhere, Lord Ingtar," Hurin said. "His stench is everywhere." They had come into an area where the stone houses were 3 and 4 stories high, as big as inns. They rounded a corner, and Rand was taken aback by the sight of a score of Seanchan soldiers standing guard in front of a big house on one side of the street, and by the sight of 2 women in lightning-marked dresses talking on the doorsteps of another across from it. A banner flapped in the wind over the house the soldiers protected, a golden hawk clutching lightning bolts. Nothing marked out the house where the women talked except themselves. The officer's armor was resplendent in red and black and gold, his helmet gilded and painted to look like a spider's head. Then Rand saw the 2 big, leathery-skinned shapes crouched among the soldiers and missed a step. Grolm. There was no mistaking those wedge-shaped heads with their 3 eyes. They can't be. Perhaps he was really asleep and this was all a nightmare. Maybe we haven't even left for Falme yet. The others stared at the beasts as they walked past the guarded house. "What in the name of the Lige are they?" Mat asked. Yorin's eyes seemed as big as his face. "Lord Rand, they're... Those are... It doesn't matter," Rand said. After a moment, Hurin nodded. "We are here for the Horn," Ingtar said, "not to stare at Seanchan monsters. Concentrate on finding Fane, Hurin." The soldiers barely glanced at them. The street ran straight down to the round harbour. Rand could see ships anchored down there, tall, square-looking ships with high masts, small in that distance. "He's been here a lot." Hurin scrubbed at his nose with the back of his hand. "The street stinks of layer on layer on layer of him. I think he might have been here as late as yesterday, Lord Ingtar. Maybe last night." Mat suddenly clutched his coat with both hands. "It's in there," he whispered. He turned around and walked backwards, peering at the tall house with the banner. "The dagger is in there. I didn't even notice it before because of those things, but I can feel it." Perrin poked a finger in his ribs. "Well, stop that before they start wondering why you're goggling at them like a fool." Rand glanced over his shoulder. The officer was looking after them. Matt turned back around sullenly. "Are we just going to keep on walking? It's in there, I tell you." "The horn is what we are after," Ingtar growled. "I mean to find Fane and make him tell me where it is." He did not slow down. Matt said nothing, but his entire face was a plea. "I have to find Fane too," Ram thought. "I have to." But when he looked at Matt's face, he said, "Ingtar, if the dagger is in that house, Fane likely is too. I can't see him letting the dagger or the horn, either one, far out of his sight." Ingtar stopped. After a moment he said, "It could be, but we will never know from out here." "We could watch for him to come out," Rand said. "If he comes out at this time of the morning, then he's spent the night there. And I'll wager where he sleeps is where the horn is. If he does come out, we can be back to Verin by midday and have a plan made before nightfall." "I do not mean to wait for Verin," Ingtar said, "and neither will I wait for night. I've waited too long already. I mean to have the horn in my hands before the sun sets again." "But we don't know, Ingtar. I know the dagger is in there," Matt said. "And Hurin says, Fane was here last night." Ingtar overrode Hurin's attempts to qualify that. "It is the first time you have been willing to say anything closer than a day or two. We're going to take back the horn now." "Now, how?" Rand said. The officer was no longer watching them, but there were still at least 20 soldiers in front of the building. And a pair of Graum. This is madness. There can't be Graum here. Thinking it did not make the beasts disappear, though. "There seem to be gardens behind all these houses," Ingtar said, looking around thoughtfully. "If one of those alleys runs by a garden wall..." Sometimes men are so busy guarding their front, they neglect their back. "Come." He headed straight for the nearest narrow passage between two of the tall houses. Hurin and Matt trotted right after him. Rand exchanged looks with Perrin. His curly-haired friend gave a resigned shrug and they followed too. The alley was barely wider than their shoulders, but it ran between high garden walls until it crossed another alley big enough for a push-barrow or small cart. That was cobblestone too, but only the backs of buildings looked down on it, shuttered windows and expanses of stone, and the high back walls of gardens overtopped by nearly leafless branches. Ingtar led them along that alley until they were opposite the waving banner. Taking his steel-backed gauntlets from under his coat, he put them on and leaped up to catch the top of the wall, then pulled himself up enough to peek over. He reported in a low monotone. "Oh, trees, flower beds, walks. There isn't a soul to be. Wait, a guard. One man isn't even wearing his helmet. Count to 50, then follow me." He swung a boot to the top of the wall and rolled over inside, disappearing before Rand could say a word. Matt began to count slowly. Rand held his breath. Perrin fingered his axe, and Hurin gripped the hilts of his weapons. 50. Hurin scrambled up and over the wall before the word was well out of Matt's mouth. Perrin went right beside him. Rand thought Matt might need some help. He looked so pale and drawn, but he gave no sign of it as he scrambled up. The stone wall provided plenty of handholds, and moments later Rand was crouched on the inside with Matt and Perrin and Hurin. The garden was in the grip of deep autumn, flower beds empty except for a few evergreen shrubs, tree branches nearly bare. The wind that rippled the banner stirred dust across the flagstone walks. For a moment Rand could not find Ingtar. Then he saw the Shianaran flat against the back wall of the house, motioning them on with sword in hand. Rand ran in a crouch, more conscious of the windows blankly peering down from the house than of his friends running beside him. It was a relief to press himself against the house beside Ingtar. Matt kept muttering to himself, "It's in there. I can feel it." "Where is the guard?" Rand whispered. "Dead," Ingtar said. The man was overcompetent. He never even tried to raise a cry. "I hid his body under one of those bushes." Rand stared at him. The Seanchan was overconfident. The only thing that kept him from going back right then was Matt's anguished murmurs. "We are almost there." Ingtar sounded as if he were speaking to himself too. "Almost there. Come." Rand drew his sword as they started up the back steps. He was aware of Hurin unlimbering his short-bladed sword and notched swordbreaker, and Perrin reluctantly drawing his axe from the loop on his belt. The hallway inside was narrow. A half-open door to their right smelled like a kitchen. Several people were moving about in that room. There was an indistinguishable sound of voices, and occasionally the soft clatter of a pot lid. Ingtar motioned Matt to lead, and they crept by the door. Rand watched the narrowing opening until they were around the next corner. A slender young woman with dark hair came out of a door ahead of them, carrying a tray with one cup. They all froze. They all froze. She turned the other way without looking in their direction. Rand's eyes widened. Her long white robe was all but transparent. She vanished around another corner. "Did you see that?" Matt said hoarsely. "You could see right through." Ingtar clapped a hand over Matt's mouth and whispered, "Keep your mind on why we are here. Now find it. Find the horn for me." Matt pointed to a narrow set of winding stairs. They climbed a flight, and he led them toward the front of the house. The furnishings in the hallways were sparse and seemed all curves. Here and there a tapestry hung on a wall, or a folding screen stood against it, each painted with a few birds on branches or a flower or two. A river flowed across one screen, but aside from rippling water and narrow strips of riverbank, the rest of it was blank. All around them Rand could hear the sounds of people stirring, slippers scuffing on the floor, soft murmurs of speech. He did not see anyone, but he could imagine it all too well. Someone stepping into the hall to see 5 slinking men with weapons in their hands, shouting an alarm. "Bob! Bob! Bob!" "In there," Matt whispered, pointing to a big pair of sliding doors ahead, carved handholds, their only ornamentation. "At least the dagger is." Ingtar looked at Hurin. The sniffer slid the doors open, and Ingtar leaped through with his sword ready. There was no one there. Rand and the others hurried inside, and Hurin quickly closed the doors behind them. Painted screens hid all the walls and any other doors, and veiled the light coming through windows that had to overlook the street. At one end of the big room stood a tall, circular cabinet. At the other was a small table, the lone chair on the carpet, turned to face it. Rand heard Ingtar gasp, but he only felt like heaving a sigh of relief. The curling golden horn of Valere sat on a stand on the table. Below it, the ruby in the hilt of the ornate dagger caught the light. Matt darted to the table, snatching horn and dagger. "We have it," he crowed, shaking the dagger in his fist. "We have both of them." "Not so loud," Perrin said with a wince. "We don't have them out of here yet." His hands were busy on the haft of his axe. They seemed to want to be holding something else. The Horn of Valere. There was sheer awe in Ingtar's voice. He touched the horn hesitantly, tracing a finger along the silver script inlaid around the bell and mouthing the translation, then pulled his hand back with a shiver of excitement. "It is. By the light, it is. I am saved." Hurin was moving the screens that hid the windows. He shoved the last out of his way and peered into the street below. "Those soldiers are all still there, looking like they've took root." He shuddered. "Or those things too." Rand went to join him. The two beasts were Graum, there was no denying it. How did they? Bob. As he lifted his eyes from the street, words died. He was looking over a wall into the garden of the big house across the street. He could see where further walls had been torn down, joining other gardens to it. Women sat on benches there, or strolled along the walks, always in pairs. Women linked, neck to wrist, by silver leashes. One of the women, with a collar around her neck, looked up. He was too far to make out her face clearly, but for an instant it seemed that their eyes met, and he knew. The blood drained from his face. "Egwene," he breathed. "What are you talking about?" Matt said. "Egwene is safe in Tar Valon." "I wish I were." "She's here?" Rand said. The two women were turning, walking toward one of the buildings on the far side of the joined gardens. "She is there, right across the street." "Oh, light, she's wearing one of those collars. Are you sure?" Perrin said. He came to peer from the window. "I don't see her, Rand. And I could recognize her if I did, even at this distance." "I am sure," Rand said. The two women disappeared into one of the houses that faced the next street over. His stomach was twisted into a knot. "She is supposed to be safe. She's supposed to be in the White Tower. I have to get her out. The rest of you." "So," the slurring voice was as soft as the sound of the doors sliding in their tracks, "you are not who I expected." For a brief moment, Rand stared. The tall man with the shaven head who had stepped into the room wore a long, trailing blue robe, and his fingernails were so long that Rand wondered if he could handle anything. The two men standing obsequiously behind him had only half their dark hair shaved, the rest hanging in a dark braid down each man's right cheek. One of them cradled a sheathed sword in his arms. It was only a moment he had for staring, then screens toppled to reveal, at either end of the room, a doorway crowded with 4 or 5 Seanchan soldiers, bareheaded but armored, and swords in hand. "You are in the presence of the High Lord Turak," the man who carried the sword began, staring at Rand and the others angrily, but a brief motion of a finger with a blue lacquered nail cut him short. The other servant stepped forward with a bow and began undoing Turak's robe. "When one of my guards was found dead," the shaven-headed man said calmly, "I suspected the man who calls himself Fane. I have been suspicious of him since Juan died so mysteriously, and he has always wanted that dagger." He held out his arms for the servant to remove his robe. Despite his soft, almost singing voice, hard muscles roped his arms and smooth chest, which was bare to a blue sash holding wide white trousers that seemed made of hundreds of pleats. He sounded uninterested and indifferent to the blades in their hands. "And now to find strangers with not only the dagger, but the horn. It will please me to kill 1 or 2 of you for disturbing my morning. Those who survive will tell me of who you are and why you came." He stretched out a hand without looking. The man with the scabbarded sword laid the hilt in the hand and drew the heavy, curved blade. "I would not have the horn damaged." Turak gave no other signal, but one of the soldiers stalked into the room and reached for the horn. Rand did not know whether he should laugh or not. The man wore armor, but his arrogant face seemed as oblivious to their weapons as Turak was. Matt put an end to it. As the Seanchan reached out his hand, Matt slashed it with the ruby-hilted dagger. With a curse, the soldier leaped back, looking surprised. And then he screamed. It chilled the room, held everyone where they stood in astonishment. The trembling hand he held up in front of his face was turning black, darkness creeping outwards from the bleeding gash that crossed his palm. He opened his mouth wide and howled, clawing at his arm, then his shoulder. Kicking, jerking, he toppled to the floor, thrashing on the silken carpet, shrieking as his face grew black and his dark eyes bulged like overripe plums, until a dark, swollen tongue gagged him. He twitched, choking raggedly, heels drumming, and did not move again. Every bit of his exposed flesh was black as putrid pitch and looked ready to burst at a touch. Matt licked his lips and swallowed. His grip shifted uneasily on the dagger. Even Turak stared, open-mouthed. "You see," Ingtar said softly, "we are no easy meat." Suddenly he leaped over the corpse toward the soldier still goggling at what was left of the man who had stood at their shoulders only moments before. "Shinoa," he cried. "Follow me." Hurin leaped after him and the soldiers fell back before them, the sounds of steel on steel rising. The Seanchan at the other end of the room started forward as Ingtar moved, but then they were falling back too before Matt's thrusting dagger even more than from the axe. Perrin swung with wordless snarls. In the space of heartbeats, Rand stood alone facing Turak, who held his blade upright before him. His moment of shock was gone. His eyes were sharp on Rand's face. The black and swollen body of one of his soldiers might as well not have existed. It did not seem to exist for the two servants either, any more than Rand and his sword existed, or the sounds of fighting, fading now from the rooms to either side, out into the house. The servants had begun calmly folding Turak's robe as soon as the High Lord took his sword, and had not looked up even for the dead soldier's shrieks. Now they knelt beside the door and watched with impassive eyes. "I suspected it might come to you and me." Turak spun his blade easily, a full circle one way, then the other, his long-nailed fingers moving delicately on the hilt. His fingernails did not seem to hamper him at all. "You are young. Let us see what is required to earn the heron on this side of the ocean." Suddenly, Rand saw. Standing tall on Turak's blade was a heron. With the little training he had, he was face to face with a real blade master. Hastily he tossed the fleece-lined cloak aside, ridding himself of weight and encumbrance. Turak waited. Rand desperately wanted to seek the void. It was plain he would need every shred of ability he could muster, and even then his chances of leaving the room alive would be small. He had to leave alive. Egwene was almost close enough for him to shout to her, and he had to free her somehow. But Saidin waited in the void. The thought made his heart leap with eagerness at the same time that it turned his stomach. But just as close as Egwene were those other women. Damane, if he touched Saidin, and if he could not stop himself channeling, they would know, Verin had told him. Know and wonder. So many, so close. He might survive Turak, only to die facing Damane, and he could not die before Egwene was free. Rand raised his blade. Turak glided toward him on silent feet. Blade rang on blade like hammer on anvil. From the first, it was clear to Rand that the man was testing him, pushing only hard enough to see what he could do, then pushing a little harder, then just a little harder still. It was quick wrists and quick feet that kept Rand alive as much as skill. Without the void, he was always half a heartbeat behind. The tip of Turak's heavy sword made a stinging trench just under his left eye. A flap of coat sleeve hung away from his shoulder, the darker for being wet. Under a neat slash beneath his right arm, precise as a tailor's cut, he could feel warm dampness spreading down his ribs. There was disappointment on the High Lord's face. He stepped back with a gesture of disgust. "Where did you find that blade, boy? Or do they here truly award the heron to those no more skilled than you? No matter. Make your peace. It is time to die." He came on again. The void enveloped Rand. Saidin flowed toward him, glowing with the promise of the one power, but he ignored it. It was no more difficult than ignoring a barbed thorn twisting in his flesh. He refused to be filled with the power, refused to be one with the male half of the true source. He was one with the sword in his hands, one with the floor beneath his feet, one with the walls. One with Turak. He recognized the forms the High Lord used. They were a little different from what he had been taught, but not enough. The swallow takes flight, met parching the silk. Moon on the water, met the wood grouse dances. Ribbon in the air, met stones, falling from the cliff. They moved about the room as in a dance, and their music was steel against steel. Disappointment and disgust faded from Turak's dark eyes, replaced by surprise, then concentration. Sweat appeared on the High Lord's face as he pressed Rand harder. Lightning of three prongs met leaf on the breeze. Rand's thoughts floated outside the void apart from himself, hardly noticed. It was not enough. He faced a blade master, and with the void and every ounce of his skill, he was barely managing to hold his own. Barely. He had to end it before Turak finally did. Saidin? No. Sometimes it is necessary to sheathe the sword in your own flesh, but that would not help Egwene either. He had to end it now. Now. Turak's eyes widened as Rand glided forward. So far he had only defended, now he attacked, all out. The boar rushes down the mountain. Every movement of his blade was an attempt to reach the High Lord. Now all Turak could do was retreat and defend, down the length of the room, almost to the door. In an instant, while Turak still tried to face the boar, Rand charged. The river undercuts the bank. He dropped to one knee, blade slashing across. He did not need Turak's gasp, or the feel of resistance to his cut to know. He heard two thumps and turned his head, knowing what he would see. He looked down the length of his blade, wet and red, to where the High Lord lay. Sword tumbled from his limp hand, a dark dampness staining the birds woven in the carpet under his body. Turak's eyes were still open, but already filmed with death. The void shook. He had faced Trollocs before, faced Shadowspawn. Never before had he confronted a human being with a sword, except in practice or bluff. "I just killed a man." The void shook, and Saidin tried to fill him. Desperately he clawed free, breathing hard as he looked around. He gave a start when he saw the two servants still kneeling beside the door. He had forgotten them, and now he did not know what to do about them. Neither man appeared armed, yet all they had to do was shout. "Orb, orb, orb." They never looked at him or at each other. Instead they stared silently at the High Lord's body. They produced daggers from under their robes, and he tightened his grip on the sword, but each man placed the point to his own breast. "From birth to death," they intoned in unison, "I serve the blood," and plunged the daggers into their own hearts. They folded forward almost peacefully, heads to the floor, as if bowing deeply to their lord. Rand stared at them in disbelief. Mad, he thought. Maybe I will go mad, but they already were. He was getting to his feet shakily when Ingtar and the others came running back. They all bore nicks and cuts. The leather of Ingtar's coat was stained in more than one place. Matt still had the horn and his dagger, its blade darker than the ruby in its hilt. Perrin's axe was red too, and he looked as if he might be sick at any moment. "You dealt with them?" Ingtar said, looking at the bodies. "Then we're done if no alarm is given. Those fools never cried for help, not once." "I will see if the guards heard anything," Hurin said, and darted for the window. Matt shook his head. "Rand, these people are crazy. I know I've said that before, but these people really are. Those servants. Oh. Rand held his breath, wondering if they had all killed themselves. Matt said, "Whenever they saw us fighting, they fell on their knees, put their faces to the floor, and wrapped their arms around their heads. They never moved or cried out, never tried to help the soldiers or give an alarm. They're still there as far as I know." "I would not count on them staying on their knees," Ingtar said dryly. "We are leaving now as fast as we can run." "You go," Rand said. "Egwene, you fool," Ingtar snapped. "We have what we came for. The Horn of Valere, the hope of salvation. What can one girl count, even if you love her, alongside the horn and what it stands for? The Dark One can have the horn for all I care. What does finding the horn count if I abandon Egwene to this? If I did that, the horn couldn't save me. The Creator couldn't save me. I would damn myself." Ingtar stared at him, his face unreadable. "You mean that exactly, don't you?" "Something's happening out here," Hurin said urgently. "A man just came running up, and they're all milling like fish in a bucket. Wait, the officer is coming inside." "Go," Ingtar said. He tried to take the horn, but Matt was already running. Rand hesitated, but Ingtar grabbed his arm and pulled him into the hall. The others were streaming after Matt. Perrin only gave Rand one pained look before he went. "You cannot save the girl if you stand here and die." He ran with them. Part of him hated himself for running, but another part whispered, "I'll come back. I'll free her somehow." By the time they reached the bottom of the narrow, winding staircase, he could hear a man's deep voice raised in the front part of the house, angrily demanding that someone stand up and speak. A serving girl in her nearly transparent robe knelt at the bottom of the stairs, and a grey-haired woman all in white wool, with a long flowery apron, knelt by the kitchen door. They were both exactly as Matt had described, faces to the floor and arms wrapped around their heads, and they did not stir a hair as Rand and the others hurried by. He was relieved to see the motions of breathing. They crossed the garden at a dead run, climbing over the back wall rapidly. Ingtar cursed when Matt tossed the Horn of Valere ahead of him, and tried again to take it when he dropped outside. But Matt snatched it up with a quick, "It isn't even scratched," and scampered up the alley. More shouts rose from the house they had just left. A woman screamed, and someone began tolling a gong. "I will come back for her." Somehow, Rand sped after the others as fast as he could. To come out of the shadow, Nynaeve and the others heard distant shouts as they approached the buildings where the Damane were housed. The crowds were beginning to pick up, and there was a nervousness to the people in the street, an extra quickness to their step, an extra wariness in the way they glanced past Nynaeve in her lightning-panelled dress and the woman she held by a silver leash. Shifting her bundle nervously, Elaine peered toward the noise of shouts, one street over, where the golden hawk clutching lightning rippled in the wind. "What is happening? Nothing to do with us," Nynaeve said firmly. "You hope," Min added, "and so do I." She increased her pace, hurrying up the steps ahead of the others, and disappeared inside the tall stone house. Nynaeve shortened her grip on the leash. "Remember, Satyr, you want us to make it through this safely, as much as we do." "I do," the Seanchan woman said fervently. She kept her chin on her chest to hide her face. "I will cause you no trouble, I swear." As they turned up the grey stone steps, a Suldam and a Domain appeared at the head of the stairs, coming down as they went up. After one glance to make sure the woman in the collar was not Egwene, Nynaeve did not look at them again. She used the Adam to keep Satyr close by her side, so if the Damane sensed the ability to channel in one of them, she would think it was Satyr. She felt sweat trickling down her spine, though, until she realized they were paying her no more attention than she gave them. All they saw was a dress with lightning panels and a grey dress, the women wearing them linked by the silver length of an Adam. just another leash holder with a leashed one, and a local girl hurrying along behind with a bundle belonging to the Suldam. Nynaeve pushed open the door, and they went in. Whatever the excitement beneath Turak's banner, it did not extend here, not yet. There were only women moving about in the entry hall, all easily placed by their dress. 3 grey-dressed damane, with Suldam wearing the bracelets. 2 women in dresses panelled with forked lightning stood talking, and 3 crossed the hall alone. 4 dressed like Min, in plain dark woolens, hurried on their way with trays. Min stood waiting down the entry hall when they went in. She glanced at them once, then started deeper into the house. Nynaeve guided Seta down the hall after Min, with Elaine scurrying along in their wake. No one gave them a second glance, it seemed to Nynaeve, but she thought the trickle of sweat down her backbone might become a river soon. She kept Seta moving quickly so no one would have a chance for a good look, or worse, a question. With her eyes fixed on her toes, Seta needed so little urging that Nynaeve thought she would have been running, if not for the physical restraint of the leash. Near the back of the house, Min took a narrow stairs that spiraled upwards. Nynaeve pushed Seta up it ahead of her, all the way to the 4th floor. The ceilings were low there, the halls empty and silent, except for the soft sounds of weeping. Weeping seemed to fit the air of the chilly halls. This place. Elaine began, then shook her head. It feels. Yes, it does, Nynaeve said grimly. She glared at Seta, who kept her face down. A pallor of fear made the Seanchan woman's skin paler than it was normally. Wordlessly, Min opened a door and went in, and they followed. The room beyond had been divided into smaller rooms by roughly made wooden walls, with a narrow hallway running to a window. Nynaeve crowded after Min as she hurried to the last door on the right and pushed in. A slender, dark-haired girl in grey sat at a small table with her head resting on folded arms, but even before she looked up, Nynaeve knew it was Egwene. A ribbon of shining metal ran from the silver collar around Egwene's neck to a bracelet hanging on a peg on the wall. Her eyes widened at the sight of them, her mouth working silently. As Elaine closed the door, Egwene gave a sudden giggle and pressed her hands to her mouth to stifle it. The tiny room was more than crowded with all of them in it. "I know I'm not dreaming," she said in a quivering voice, "because if I was dreaming, you'd be rammed and gallad on tall stallions. I have been dreaming. I thought Rand was here. I couldn't see him, but I thought—" Her voice trailed off. "If you'd rather wait for them," Min said dryly. "Oh no. No, you are all beautiful. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Where did you come from? How did you do it? That dress, Nynaeve, and the Adam, and who is?" She gave an abrupt squeak. "That's Seta." "How?" Her voice hardened so that Nynaeve barely recognized it. "I'd like to put her in a pot of boiling water." Seta had her eyes squeezed shut and her hands clutched her skirts. She was trembling. "What have they done to you?" Elaine exclaimed. "What could they do to make you want something like that?" Egwene never took her eyes off the Seanchan woman. "I'd like to make her feel it. That's what she did to me, made me feel like I was neck deep in." She shuddered. "You do not know what it is like wearing one of these, Elaine. You don't know what they can do to you. I can never decide whether Seta is worse than Renna, but they're all hateful." "I think I know," Nynaeve said quietly. She could feel the sweat soaking Seta's skin, the cold tremors that shook her limbs. The yellow-haired Seanchan was terrified. It was all she could do not to make Seta's terrors come true then and there. "Can you take this off of me?" Egwene asked, touching the collar. "You must be able to, if you could put that one on." Nynaeve channeled a pinpoint trickle. The collar on Egwene's neck provided anger enough, and if it had not, Seta's fear, the knowledge of how deserved it truly was, and her own knowledge of what she wanted to do to the woman, would have done it. The collar sprang open and fell away from Egwene's throat. With an expression of wonder, Egwene touched her neck. "Put on my dress and coat," Nynaeve told her. Elaine was already unbundling the clothes on the bed. "We will walk out of here, and no one will even notice you." She considered holding her contact with Cedar. She was certainly angry enough, and it felt so wonderful, but, reluctantly, she let it go. This was the one place in Falme where there was no chance of a Suldam and Damonet coming to investigate if they sensed someone channeling, but they would certainly do so if a Damonet saw a woman she thought was a Suldam with the glow of channeling around her. "I don't know why you aren't gone already." Alone here, even if you could not figure out how to get that thing off you, you could have just picked it up and run." As Min and Elaine hurriedly helped her change into Nynaeve's old dress, Egwene explained about moving the bracelet from where a Suldam left it, and how channeling made her sick unless a Suldam wore the bracelet. Just that morning she had discovered how the collar could be opened without the power, and found that touching the catch with the intention of opening it made her hand notch into uselessness. She could touch it as much as she wanted, so long as she did not think of undoing the catch. The merest hint of that, though, and Nynaeve felt sick herself. The bracelet on her wrist made her sick. It was too horrible. She wanted it off her wrist before she learned more about Adam, before she perhaps learned something that would make her feel soiled forever for having worn it. Unfastening the silver cuff, she pulled it loose, snapped it closed, and hung it on one of the pegs. "Don't think that means you can shout for help now." She shook a fist under Sator's nose. "I can still make you wish you were never born if you open your mouth, and I do not need that bloody thing. You do not mean to leave me here with it," Sator said in a whisper. "You cannot. Tie me. Gag me so I cannot give an alarm. Please." Egwene gave a mirthless laugh. "Leave it on her. She won't call for help even without a gag. You had better hope whoever finds you will remove the Ardam and keep your little secret, Sator. Your dirty secret, isn't it?" "What are you talking about?" Elaine said. "I have thought about it a great deal," Egwene said. "Thinking was all I could do when they left me alone up here. Suldam claim they develop an affinity after a few years. Most of them can tell when a woman is channeling whether they're leashed to her or not. I wasn't sure, but Seta proves it." "Proves what?" Elaine demanded, and then her eyes widened in sudden realization, but Egwene went on. "Nynaeve, Adam only work on women who can channel. Don't you see? Suldam can channel the same as Damane." Sita groaned through her teeth, shaking her head in violent denial. A Suldam would die before admitting she could channel, even if she knew, and they never train the ability, so they cannot do anything with it, but they can channel. "I told you," Min said. That collar shouldn't have worked on her. She was doing up the last buttons down Egwene's back. Any woman who couldn't channel would be able to beat you silly while you tried to control her with it. "How can that be?" Nynaeve said. "I thought the Seanchan put leashes on any woman who can channel." "All of those they find," Egwene told her. "But those they can find are like you, and me, and Elaine, and Elaine. We were born with it, ready to channel whether anyone taught us or not. But what about Seanchan girls who aren't born with the ability, but who could be taught? Not just any woman can become AAA leash holder." Renna thought she was being friendly, telling me about it. "It is apparently a feast day in Seanchan villages when the Suldam come to test the girls. They want to find any like you and me and leash them, but they let all the others put on a bracelet to see if they can feel what the poor woman in the collar feels. Those who can are taken away to be trained as Suldam. They are the women who could be taught." Sita was moaning under her breath. "No, no, no," over and over again. "I know she is horrible," Elaine said, "but I feel as if I should help her somehow. She could be one of our sisters, only the Seanchan have twisted it all." Nynaeve opened her mouth to say they had better worry about helping themselves, and the door opened. "What is going on here?" Renna demanded, stepping into the room. "An audience?" She stared at Nynaeve, hands on hips. "I never gave permission for anyone else to link with my pet, Thule. I do not even know who you—" Her eyes fell on Egwene. Egwene wearing Nynaeve's dress instead of Damane grey. Egwene with no collar around her throat, and her eyes grew as big as saucers. She never had a chance to yell. Before anyone else could move, Egwene snatched the pitcher from her washstand and smashed it into Renna's midriff. The pitcher shattered, and the Suldam lost all her breath in a gurgling gasp and doubled over. As she fell, Egwene leaped on her with a snarl, shoving her flat, grabbing for the collar she had worn, where it still lay on the floor, snapping it around the other woman's neck. With one jerk on the silver leash, Egwene pulled the bracelet from the peg and fitted it to her own wrist. Her lips were pulled back from her teeth, her eyes fixed on Renna's face with a terrible concentration. Kneeling on the Suldam's shoulders, she pressed both hands over the woman's mouth. Rena gave a tremendous convulsion, and her eyes bulged in her face. Hoarse sounds came from her throat, screams held back by Egwene's hands. Her heels drummed on the floor. "Stop it, Egwene." Nynaeve grabbed Egwene's shoulders, pulling her off of the other woman. "Egwene, stop it. That isn't what you want." Rena lay grey-faced and panting, staring wildly at the ceiling. Suddenly Egwene threw herself against Nynaeve, sobbing raggedly at her breast. "She hurt me, Nynaeve. She hurt me. They all did. They hurt me until I did what they wanted. I hate them. I hate them for hurting me, and I hate them because I couldn't stop them from making me do what they wanted." "I know," Nynaeve said gently. She smoothed Egwene's hair. "It is all right to hate them, Egwene. It is. They deserve it. But it isn't all right to let them make you like they are." Sita's hands were pressed to her face. Rena touched the collar at her throat disbelievingly with a shaking hand. Egwene straightened, brushing her tears away quickly. "I'm not. I'm not like them." She almost clawed the bracelet off of her wrist and threw it down. "I'm not. But I wish I could kill them. They deserve it." Min was staring grimly at the two Suldam. "Rand would kill someone who did a thing like that," Elaine said. She seemed to be steeling herself. "I'm sure he would." "Perhaps they do," Nynaeve said, "and perhaps he would. But men often mistake revenge and killing for justice. They seldom have the stomach for justice." She'd often sat in judgment with the women's circle. Sometimes men came before them, thinking women might give them a better hearing than the men of the village council, but men always thought they could sway the decision with eloquence or pleas for mercy. The women's circle gave mercy where it was deserved, but justice always, and it was the wisdom who pronounced it. She picked up the bracelet Egwene had discarded and closed it. "I would free every woman here if I could, and destroy every last one of these. But since I cannot..." She slipped the bracelet over the same peg that held the other one, then addressed herself to the Suldam. "Not leash holders any longer," she told herself. "Perhaps if you are very quiet, you will be left alone here long enough to manage to remove the collars. The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels, and it may be that you've done enough good to counterbalance the evil you have done, enough that you will be allowed to remove them. If not, you will be found eventually, and I think whoever finds you will ask a great many questions before they remove those collars. I think perhaps you will learn at first hand the life you have given to other women. That is justice," she added to the others. Rena wore a fixed stare of horror. Sita's shoulders shook as she sobbed into her hands. Nynaeve hardened her heart. "It is justice," she told herself. "It is," and herded the others out of the room. No one paid any more attention to them going out than they had coming in. Nynaeve supposed she had the Suldam dress to thank for that, but she could not wait to change into something else. Anything else. The dirtiest rag would feel cleaner on her skin. The girls were silent, walking close behind her, until they were out on the cobblestone street again. She did not know if it was what she had done, or the fear that someone might stop them. She scowled. Would they have felt better if she had let them work themselves up to cutting the women's throats? "Horses," Egwene said. "We will need horses. I know the stable where they took Bella, but I don't think we can get to her." "We have to leave Bella here," Nynaeve told her. "We are leaving by ship." "Where is everybody?" Min said, and suddenly Nynaeve realized the street was empty. The crowds were gone, not a sign of them to be seen. Every shop and window along the street was shuttered tight. But up the street from the harbour came a formation of Seanchan soldiers, 100 or more in ordered ranks, with an officer at their head in his painted armour. They were still halfway down the street from the women, but they marched with a grim, implacable step, and it seemed to Nynaeve that every eye was fixed on her. "That's ridiculous. I can't see their eyes inside those helmets, and if anybody had given an alarm, it would be behind us." She stopped anyway. "There are more behind us," Min murmured. "Nynaeve could hear those boots now. I don't know which will reach us first." Nynaeve took a deep breath. "They are nothing to do with us." She looked beyond the approaching soldiers to the harbour, filled with tall, boxy Seanchan ships. She could not make out spray. She prayed it was still there and ready. "We will walk right past them. Light, I hope we can." "What if they want you to join them, Nynaeve?" Elaine asked. "You are wearing that dress. If they start asking questions..." "I will not go back," Egwene said grimly. "I'll die first. Let me show them what they've taught me. To Nynaeve's eye, a golden nimbus suddenly seemed to surround her. "No," she said, but it was too late. With a roar like thunder, the street under the first ranks of Seanchan erupted, dirt and cobblestones and armored men thrown aside like spray from a fountain. Still glowing, Egwene spun to stare up the street, and the thunderous roar was repeated. Dirt rained down on the women. Shouting Seanchan soldiers scattered in good order to shelter in alleys and behind stoops. In moments they were all out of sight, except for those who lay around the two large holes marring the street. Some of those stirred feebly, and moans drifted along the street. Nynaeve threw up her hands, trying to look in both directions at once. "You fool. We're trying not to attract attention." There was no hope of that now. She only hoped they could manage to work their way around the soldiers to the harbour through the alleys. The Damini must know, too, now. They could not have missed that. "I won't go back to that collar," Egwene said fiercely. "I won't. Look out," Min shouted. With a shrill whine, a fireball as big as a horse arched into the air over the rooftops and began to fall, directly toward them. "Run!" Nynaeve shouted and threw herself into a dive toward the nearest alleyway between two shuttered shops. She landed awkwardly on her stomach with a grunt, losing half her breath as the fireball struck. Hot wind washed over her down the narrow passage. Gulping air, she rolled onto her back and stared back into the street. The cobblestones where they had been standing were chipped and cracked and blackened in a circle 10 paces across. Elaine was crouched just inside another alley on the other side of the street. Of Min and Egwene there was no sign. Nynaeve clapped a hand to her mouth in horror. Elaine seemed to understand what she was thinking. The daughter-heir shook her head violently and pointed down the street. They had gone that way. Nynaeve heaved a sigh of relief that immediately turned to a growl. "Fool girl. We could have gotten by them." There was no time for recriminations, though. She scooted to the corner and peered cautiously around the edge of the building. A head-sized fireball flashed down the street toward her. She leaped back just before it exploded against the corner where her own head had been, showering her with stone chips. Anger had her awash in the one power before she was aware of it. Lightning flashed out of the sky, striking somewhere up the street with a crash near the origin of the fireball. Another jagged bolt split the sky, and then she was running down the alley. Behind her, lightning lanced the mouth of the alley. "If Doman doesn't have that ship waiting, I'll—" "Light, let us all reach it safely." Bail Doman jerked erect as lightning streaked across the slate-grey sky, striking somewhere in the town. Then again, there do no be enough clouds for that. Something rumbled loudly up in the town, and a ball of fire smashed into a rooftop just above the docks, throwing splintered slates in wide arcs. The docks had emptied themselves of people a while back, except for a few Seanchan. They ran wildly now, drawing swords and shouting. A man appeared from one of the warehouses with a Grolm at his side, running to keep up with the beast's long leaps as they vanished into one of the streets leading up from the water. One of Doman's crewmen jumped for an axe and swung it high over a mooring cable. In 2 strides, Doman seized the upraised axe with one hand and the man's throat with the other. "Spray do stay till I do say sail, Edwin Co." "They're going mad, Captain," Yarin shouted. An explosion sent echoes rumbling across the harbour, sending the gulls into screaming circles, and lightning flickered again, crashing to earth inside Falme. "The Damane will kill us all. Let us go while they're busy killing one another. They will never notice us till we are gone." "I did give my word," Doman said. He wrenched the axe from Cole's hand and threw it clattering onto the deck. "I did give my word. Hurry, woman," he thought. "Aes Sedai or whatever you be. Hurry." Jaefram Bornhold eyed the lightning flashing over Falme and dismissed it from his mind. Some huge flying creature, one of the Seanchan monsters no doubt, flew wildly to escape the boats. If there was a storm, it would hinder the Seanchan as much as it did him. Nearly treeless hills, a few topped by sparse thickets, still hid the town from him and him from it. His 1,000 men lay spread out to either side of him, one long mounted rank rippling along the hollows between hills. The cold wind tossed their white cloaks and flapped the banner at Bornhold's side, the wavy rayed golden sun of the Children of the Light. "Go now, Baer," he commanded. The gaunt-faced man hesitated, and Bornhold put a snap into his voice. "I said go, child Baer." Baer touched hand to heart and bowed. "As you command, my lord captain." He turned his horse away, every line of him shouting reluctance. Bornhold put Bayer out of his mind. He had done what he could there. He raised his voice. "The Legion will advance at a walk." With a creak of saddles, the long line of white-cloaked men moved slowly toward Falme. Rand peered around the corner at the approaching Seanchan, then ducked back into the narrow alley between two stables with a grimace. They would be there soon. There was blood crusted on his cheek. The cuts he had from Turak burned, but there was nothing to be done for them now. Lightning flashed across the sky again. He felt the rumble of its plummet through his boots. "What in the name of the light is happening?" "Close," Ingtar said. "The Horn of Valere must be saved, Rand." Despite the Seanchan, despite the lightning and strange explosions down in the town proper, he seemed preoccupied with his own thoughts. Matt and Perrin and Hurin were down at the other end of the alley, watching another Seanchan patrol. The place where they had left the horses was close now, if they could only reach it. "She's in trouble," Rand muttered. "Egwene." There was an odd feeling in his head, as if pieces of his life were in danger. Egwene was one piece, one thread of the cord that made his life, but there were others, and he could feel them threatened. Down there, in Falme, and if any of those threads was destroyed, his life would never be complete, the way it was meant to be. He did not understand it, but the feeling was sure and certain. One man could hold 50 here, Ingtar said. The two stables stood close together, with barely room for the pair of them to stand side by side between them. One man holding 50 at a narrow passage. Not a bad way to die. Songs have been made about less. "There's no need for that," Rand said. "I hope." A rooftop in the town exploded. "How am I going to get back in here? I have to reach her." "Reach them?" Shaking his head, he peeked around the corner again. The Seanchan were closer, still coming. "I never knew what he was going to do," Ingtar said softly, as if talking to himself. He had his sword out, testing the edge with his thumb. A pale little man you didn't seem to really notice, even when you were looking at him. "Take him inside Faldara," I was told, "inside the fortress." I did not want to, but I had to do it. You understand? I had to, but I had to. I never knew what he intended until he shot that arrow. I still don't know if it was meant for the Amelin or for you. Rand felt a chill. He stared at Ingtar. "What are you saying?" he whispered. Studying his blade, Ingtar did not seem to hear. Humankind is being swept away everywhere. Nations fail and vanish. Dark friends are everywhere, and none of these Southlanders seem to notice or care. We fight to hold the borderlands, to keep them safe in their houses, and every year, despite all we can do, the blight advances. And these Southlanders think Trollocs are myths, and Myrddraal a gleeman's tale. He frowned and shook his head. It seemed the only way. We would be destroyed for nothing, defending people who do not even know or care. It seemed logical. Why should we be destroyed for them, when we could make our own peace? Better the shadow, I thought, than useless oblivion, like Carolan or Hardan or... It seemed so logical then. Rand grabbed Ingtar's lapels. "You aren't making any sense." "He can't mean what he's saying. He can't. Say it plain, whatever you mean. You are talking crazy." For the first time, Ingtar looked at Rand. His eyes shone with unshed tears. "You are a better man than I. Shepherd or lord, a better man. The prophecy says, 'Let who sounds me think not of glory, but only salvation.' It was my salvation I was thinking of. I would sound the horn and lead the heroes of the ages against Sheol Ghul. Surely that would have been enough to save me. No man can walk so long in the shadow that he cannot come again to the light. That is what they say. Surely that would have been enough to wash away what I have been and done. O light Ingtar." Rand released his hold on the other man and sagged back against the stable wall. I think wanting to is enough. I think all you have to do is stop being one of them." Ingtar flinched as if Rand had said it out loud. "Dark friend. Rand, when Verin brought us here with the portal stone, I lived other lives. Sometimes I held the horn, but I never sounded it. I tried to escape what I'd become, but I never did. Always there was something else required of me, always something worse than the last, until I was. You are ready to give it up to save a friend. Think not of glory. Oh, light, help me." Rand did not know what to say. It was as if Egwene had told him she had murdered children. Too horrible to be believed. Too horrible for anyone to admit to, unless it was true. Too horrible. After a time, Ingtar spoke again, firmly. There has to be a price, Rand. There is always a price. Perhaps I can pay it here. Ingtar, aye. It is every man's right, Rand, to choose when to sheathe the sword. Even one like me. Before Rand could say anything, Hurin came running down the alley. The patrol turned aside, he said hurriedly, down into the town. They seemed to be gathering down there. Matt and Perrin went on. He took a quick look down the street and pulled back. We better do the same, Lord Ingtar, Lord Rand. Those bug-headed Seanchan are almost here. Go, Rand, Ingtar said. He turned to face the street and did not look at Rand or Hurin again. Take the horn where it belongs. I always knew the Amelin should have given you the charge. But all I ever wanted was to keep Shienar whole, to keep us from being swept away and forgotten. I know, Ingtar. Rand drew a deep breath. The light shine on you, Lord Ingtar of House Shinoa, and may you shelter in the palm of the Creator's hand. He touched Ingtar's shoulder. The last embrace of the mother, welcome you home, Hurin gasped. Thank you, Ingtar said softly. A tension seemed to go out of him. For the first time since the night of the Trolloc raid on Fal Dara, he stood as he had when Rand first saw him, confident and relaxed, content. Rand turned and found Hurin staring at him, staring at both of them. It is time for us to go. But Lord Ingtar does what he has to, Rand said sharply. But we go. Hurin nodded, and Rand trotted after him. Rand could hear the steady tread of the Seanchan's boots now. He did not look back. The grave is no bar to my call. Matt and Perrin were mounted by the time Rand and Hurin reached them. Far behind him, Rand heard Ingtar's voice rise. The light and Shinoa. The clash of steel joined the roar of other voices. Where's Ingtar? Matt shouted. What's going on? He had the Horn of Valere, lashed to the high pommel of his saddle as if it were just any horn, but the dagger was in his belt, the ruby-tipped hilt cupped protectively in a pale hand that seemed made of nothing but bone and sinew. He's dying, Rand said harshly as he swung onto Red's back. Then we have to help him, Perrin said. Matt can take the horn and the dagger on too. He is doing it so we can all get away, Rand said. For that too. We will all take the horn to Verin, and then you can help her take it wherever she says it belongs. What do you mean? Perrin asked. Rand dug his heels into the bay's flanks, and Red leaped away toward the hills beyond the town. The light and Shinoa. Ingtar's shout soared after him, sounding triumphant, and lightning crashed across the sky in answer. Rand whipped Red with his reins, then lay against the stallion's neck as the bay laid out in a dead run, mane and tail streaming. He wished he did not feel as if he were running away from Ingtar's cry, running from what he was supposed to do. Ingtar, a dark friend. I don't care. He was still my friend. The bay's gallop could not take him away from his own thoughts. Death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain. So many duties. Egwene, the horn, Thane, Matt, and his dagger. Why can't there just be one at a time? I have to take care of all of them. Oh, light Egwene. He reined in so suddenly that Red slid to a halt, sitting back on his haunches. They were in a scanty copse of bare-branched trees atop one of the hills overlooking Falme. The others galloped up behind him. What do you mean? Perrin demanded. We can help Verin take the horn where it's supposed to go. Where are you going to be? Maybe he's going mad already, Matt said. He wouldn't want to stay with us if he was going mad. Would you, Rand? You three take the horn to Verin, Rand said. Egwene. So many threads, in so much danger, so many duties. You do not need me. Matt caressed the dagger's hilt. That's all very well, but what about you? Burn me, you can't be going mad yet. You can't, Hurin gaped at them, not understanding half of it. I'm going back, Rand said. I should never have left. Somehow, that did not sound exactly right in his own ears. It did not feel right inside his head. I have to go back. Now, that sounded better. Egwene is still there, remember? With one of those collars around her neck. Are you sure? Matt said. I never saw her. Ah. If you say she is there, then she's there. We'll all take the horn to Verin, and then we will all go back for her. You don't think I would leave her there, do you? Rand shook his head. Threads, duties. He felt as if he were about to explode like a firework. Light, what's happening to me? Mat, Verin must take you and that dagger to Tar Valon so you can finally be free of it. You don't have any time to waste. Saving Egwene isn't wasting time. But Mat's hand had tightened on the dagger till it shook. We aren't any of us going back, Perrin said. Not yet. Look, he pointed back toward Falme. The wagon yards and horse lots were turning black with Seanchan soldiers, thousands of them rank on rank, with troops of cavalry riding scaled beasts as well as armored men on horses, colourful gonfanons marking the officers. Grom dotted the ranks, and other strange creatures, almost but not quite like monstrous birds and lizards, and great things like nothing he could describe, with grey, wrinkled skin and huge tusks. At intervals along the lines stood Sul, Dam and Damone by the score. Rand wondered if Egwene were one of them. In the town behind the soldiers, a rooftop still exploded now and again, and lightning still streaked the sky. 2 flying beasts with leathery wings, 20 spans, tip to tip, soared high overhead, keeping well away from where the bright bolts danced. All that for us? Mat said incredulously. Who do they think we are? An answer came to Rand, but he shoved it away before it had a chance to form completely. We aren't going the other way either, Lord Rand, Hurin said. White cloaks. Hundreds of them. Rand wheeled his horse to look where the sniffer was pointing. A long, white-cloaked line rippled slowly toward them across the hills. Lord Rand, Hurin muttered, if that lot lays an eye on the Horn of Valere, we'll never get it close to an Aes Sedai. We'll never get close to it again ourselves. Maybe that's why the Seanchan are gathering, Mat said hopefully. Because of the white cloaks. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with us at all. Whether it does or not, Perrin said dryly, there is going to be a battle here in a few minutes. Either side could kill us, Hurin said, even if they never see the horn. If they do. Rand could not manage to think about the white cloaks or the Seanchan. I have to go back. Have to. He was staring at the Horn of Valere, he realized. They all were. The curled, golden horn hung at Mat's pommel, the focus of every eye. It has to be there at the last battle, Mat said, licking his lips. Nothing says it can't be used before then. He pulled the horn free of its lashings and looked at them anxiously. Nothing says it can't. No one else said anything. Rand did not think he could speak. His own thoughts were too urgent to allow room for speech. Have to go back. Have to go back. The longer he looked at the horn, the more urgent his thoughts became. Have to. Have to. Mat's hand shook as he raised the Horn of Valere to his lips. It was a clear note, golden as the horn was golden. The trees around them seemed to resonate with it, and the ground under their feet, the sky overhead. That one long sound encompassed everything. Out of nowhere, a fog began to rise. First thin wisps hanging in the air, then thicker billows and thicker, until it blanketed the land like clouds. Jaefram Bornholt stiffened in his saddle as a sound filled the air, so sweet he wanted to laugh, so mournful he wanted to cry. It seemed to come from every direction at once. A mist began to rise, growing even as he watched. The Seanchan. They are trying something. They know we are here. It was too soon, the town too far, but he drew his sword. A clatter of scabbards ran down the rank of his half-legion and called, "The legion will advance at a trot." The fog covered everything now, but he knew Falme was still there, ahead. The pace of the horses picked up. He could not see them, but he could hear. Abruptly, the ground ahead flew up with a roar, showering him with dirt and pebbles. From the white blindness to his right, he heard another roar, and men and horses screamed, then from his left, and again. Thunder and screams hidden by the fog. "The Legion will charge!" His horse leaped forward as he dug in his heels, and he heard the roar as the Legion, as much of it as still lived, followed. Thunder and screams wrapped in whiteness. His last thought was regret. Baer would not be able to tell his son Dane how he had died. Rand could not see the trees around them any longer. Mat had lowered the horn, eyes wide with awe, but the sound of it still rang in Rand's ears. The fog hid everything in rolling waves, as white as the finest bleached wool, yet Rand could see. He could see, but it was mad. Falme floated somewhere beneath him, its landward border black with the Seanchan ranks, lightning ripping its streets. Falme hung over his head. There white cloaks charged and died as the earth opened in fire beneath their horses' hooves. There men ran about the decks of tall, square ships in the harbour, and on one ship, a familiar ship, fearful men waited. He could even recognize the face of the captain, Baal Domon. He clutched his head with both hands. The trees were hidden, but he could still see each of the others clearly. Hurin anxious, Mat muttering fearful, Perrin looking as if he knew this was meant to be. The fog roiled up all around them. Hurin gasped, "Lord Rand!" There was no need for him to point. Down the billowing fog, as if it were the side of a mountain, rode shapes on horses. At first the dense mists hid more than that, but slowly they came closer, and it was Rand's turn to gasp. He knew them. Men, not all in armor, and women. Their clothes and their weapons came from every age, but he knew them all. Rogosh Eagle-Eye, a fatherly-looking man with white hair and eyes so sharp as to make his name merely a hint. Gaidal Kane, a swarthy man with the hilts of his two swords sticking above his broad shoulders. Golden-haired Birgitte, with her gleaming silver bow and quiver bristling with silver arrows. More. He knew their faces, knew their names. But he heard 100 names when he looked at each face, some so different he did not recognize them as names at all, though he knew they were. Michael instead of Mikkel, Patrick instead of Pedrig, Oscar instead of Otarin. He knew the man who rode at their head too, tall and hook-nosed with dark, deep-set eyes, his great sword Justice at his side. Artur Hawkwing. Mat gaped at them as they reined in before him and the others. Is this all of you?" They were little more than 100, Rand saw, and realized that somehow he had known that they would be. Hurin's mouth hung open, his eyes bulged almost out of his head. It takes more than bravery to bind a man to the horn. Artur Hawkwing's voice was deep and carrying, a voice used to giving commands. "Or a woman," Birgitte said sharply. "Or a woman," Hawkwing agreed. "Only a few are bound to the wheel, spun out again and again to work the will of the wheel in the pattern of the ages. You could tell him, loose therein, could you but remember when you wore flesh." He was looking at Rand. Rand shook his head, but he would not waste time with denials. Invaders have come, men who call themselves Seanchan, who use chained Aes Sedai in battle. They must be driven back into the sea. And there is a girl, Egwene or Ver, a novice from the White Tower. The Seanchan have her prisoner. You must help me free her." To his surprise, several of the small host behind Artur Hawkwing chuckled, and Birgitte, testing her bowstring, laughed. "You always choose women who cause you trouble, Luz Therin." It had a fond sound, as between old friends. "My name is Rand or Thor," he snapped. "You have to hurry. There isn't much time." "Time," Birgitte said, smiling. "We have all of time." Gaidal Kane dropped his reins and, guiding his horse with his knees, drew a sword in either hand. All along the small band of heroes there was an unsheathing of swords, an unlimbering of bows, a hefting of spears and axes. Justice shone like a mirror in Artur Hawkwing's gauntleted fist. "I have fought by your side times beyond number, Luz Therin, and faced you as many more. The wheel spins us out for its purposes, not ours, to serve the pattern. I know you, if you do not know yourself. We will drive these invaders out for you." His warhorse pranced, and he looked around, frowning. "Something is wrong here. Something holds me." Suddenly he turned his sharp-eyed gaze on Rand. "You are here. Have you the banner?" A murmur ran through those behind him. "Yes." Rand tore open the straps of his saddlebags and pulled out the dragon's banner. It filled his hands and hung almost to his stallion's knees. The murmur among the heroes rose. "The pattern weaves itself around our necks like halters," Artur Hawkwing said. "You are here. The banner is here. The weave of this moment is set. We have come to the horn, but we must follow the banner. And the dragon." Hurin made a faint sound, as if his throat had seized. "Burn me," Mat breathed. "It's true. Burn me." Perrin hesitated only an instant before swinging down off his horse and striding into the mist. There came a chopping sound, and when he returned he carried a straight length of sapling, shorn of its branches. "Give it to me, Rand," he said gravely, "if they need it." "Give it to me." Hastily, Rand helped him tie the banner to the pole. When Perrin remounted, pole in hand, A current of air seemed to ripple the pale length of the banner, so the serpentine dragon appeared to move, alive. The wind did not touch the heavy fog, only the banner. "You stay here," Rand told Húrin. "When it's over, you will be safe here." Húrin drew his short sword, holding it as if it might actually be of some use from horseback. "Begging your pardon, Lord Rand, but I think not. I don't understand the 10th part of what I've heard. Or what I'm seeing." His voice dropped to a mutter before picking up again, "But I've come this far, and I think I'll go the rest of the way." Artur Hawkwing clapped the sniffer on the shoulder. "Sometimes the wheel adds to our number, friend. Perhaps you will find yourself among us one day." Húrin sat up as if he had been offered a crown. Hawkwing bowed formally from his saddle to Rand. "With your permission, Lord Rand. Trumpeter, will you give us music on the horn? Fitting that the Horn of Valere should sing us into battle. Bannerman, will you advance?" Mat sounded the horn again, long and high. The mists rang with it, and Perrin heeled his horse forward. Rand drew the heron-marked blade and rode between them. He could see nothing but thick billows of white, but somehow he could still see what he had before too. Falme, where someone used the power in the streets, and the harbour, and the Seanchan host, and the dying white cloaks, all of it beneath him, all of him hanging above, all of it just as it had been. It seemed as if no time at all had passed since the horn was first blown, as though time had paused while the heroes answered the call and now resumed counting. The wild cries, Mat wrung from the horn, echoed in the fog, and the drumming of hooves as the horses picked up speed. Rand charged into the mists, wondering if he knew where he was headed. The clouds thickened, hiding the far ends of the rank of heroes galloping to either side of him, obscuring more and more, till he could see only Mat and Perrin and Húrin clearly. Húrin crouched low in his saddle, wide-eyed, urging his horse on. Mat sounding the horn and laughing between. Perrin, his yellow eyes glowing, the dragon's banner streaming behind him. Then they were gone too, and Rand rode on alone, as it seemed. In a way he could still see them, but now it was the way he could see Falme and the Seanchan. He could not tell where they were or where he was. He tightened his grip on his sword, peered into the mists ahead. He charged alone through the fog, and somehow he knew that was how it was meant to be. Suddenly Baal-Zamon was before him in the mists, throwing his arms wide. Red reared wildly, hurling Rand from his saddle. Rand clung to his sword desperately as he soared. It was not a hard landing. In fact, he thought with a sense of wonder that it was very much like landing on nothing at all. One instant he was sailing through the mists, and the next he was not. When he climbed to his feet, his horse was gone, but Baal-Zamon was still there, striding toward him with a long, black-charred staff in his hands. They were alone, only they and the rolling fog. Behind Baal-Zamon was shadow. The mist was not dark behind him. This blackness excluded the white fog. Rand was aware of the other things too. Artur Hawkwing and the other heroes meeting the Seanchan in dense fog. Perrin with the banner, swinging his axe more to fend off those who tried to reach him than harm them. Mat, still blowing wild notes on the Horn of Valere. Húrin down from his saddle, fighting with short sword and swordbreaker in the way he knew. It seemed as if the Seanchan numbers would overwhelm them in one rush, yet it was the dark-armored Seanchan who fell back. Rand went forward to meet Baal-Zamon. Reluctantly, he assumed the void, reached for the true source, was filled with the one power. There was no other way. Perhaps he had no chance against the Dark One, but whatever chance he did have lay in the power. It soaked into his limbs, seemed to suffuse everything about him, his clothes, his sword. He felt as if he should be glowing like the sun. It thrilled him, it made him want to vomit. "Get out of my way," he grated. "I am not here for you." "The girl?" Baal-Zamon laughed. His mouth turned to flame. His burns were all but healed, leaving only a few pink scars that were already fading. He looked like a handsome man of middle years, except for his mouth and his eyes. "Which one, Luz Therin? You will not have anyone to help you this time. You are mine, or you are dead. In which case, you are mine anyway." "Liar!" Rand snarled. He struck at Baal-Zamon, but the staff of charred wood turned his blade in a shower of sparks. "Father of lies! Fool! Did those other fools you summoned not tell you who you are?" The fires of Baal-Zamon's face roared with laughter. Even floating in emptiness, Rand felt a chill. Would they have lied? I don't want to be the Dragon Reborn. He firmed his grip on his sword, parting the silk, but Ba'alzamon beat every cut aside. Sparks flew, as from a blacksmith's forge and hammer. I have business in Falme, and none with you. Never with you, Rand said. I have to hold his attention until they can free Egwene. In that odd way he could see the battle rage among the fog-shrouded wagon yards and horse lots. You pitiful wretch, you who sounded the Horn of Valere. You are linked to it now. Do you think the worms of the White Tower will ever release you now? They will put chains around your neck so heavy you will never cut them. Rand was so surprised he felt it inside the void. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't know. He was sure it must show on his face. To cover it, he rushed at Ba'alzamon. Hummingbird kisses the honey rose. The moon on the water. The swallow rides the air. Lightning arched between sword and staff. Coruscating glitter showered the fog. Yet Ba'alzamon fell back, his eyes blazing in furious furnaces. At the edge of his awareness, Rand saw the Seanchan falling back in the streets of Falme, fighting desperately. Demane tore the earth with the one power, but it could not harm Artur Hawkwing nor the other heroes of the Horn. Will you remain a slug beneath a rock? Ba'alzamon snarled. The darkness behind him boiled and stirred. You kill yourself while we stand here. The power rages in you. It burns you. It is killing you. I alone in all the world can teach you how to control it. Serve me and live. Serve me or die. Never have to hold him long enough. Hurry, Hawkwing, hurry. He launched himself at Ba'alzamon again. The dove takes flight. The falling leaf. This time it was he who was driven back. Dimly he saw the Seanchan fighting their way back in among the stables. He redoubled his efforts. The Kingfisher takes a silverback. The Seanchan gave way to a charge. Artur Hawkwing and Perrin side by side in the van, bundling straw. Ba'alzamon caught his blow in a fountain like crimson fireflies, and he had to leap away before the staff split his head. The wind of the blow ruffled his hair. The Seanchan surged forward, striking the spark. Sparks flew like hail. Ba'alzamon jumped from his stroke, and the Seanchan were driven back to the cobblestone streets. Rand wanted to howl aloud. Suddenly he knew that the two battles were linked. When he advanced, the heroes called by the Horn drove the Seanchan back. When he fell back, the Seanchan rose up. They will not save you, Ba'alzamon said. Those who might save you will be carried far across the Aerith Ocean. If ever you see them again, they will be collared slaves, and they will destroy you for their new masters. Egwene, I can't let them do that to her. Ba'alzamon's voice rode over his thoughts. You have only one salvation, Randall Thor. Lose Therin Kinslayer. I am your only salvation. Serve me, and I will give you the world. Resist, and I will destroy you as I have so often before. But this time I will destroy you to your very soul, destroy you utterly and forever. I have won again, Luz Therin. The thought was beyond the void, yet it took an effort to ignore it, not to think of all the lives where he had heard it. He shifted his sword, and Ba'alzamon readied his staff. For the first time, Rand realized that Ba'alzamon acted as if the heron-mark blade could harm him. Steel can't hurt the Dark One. But Ba'alzamon watched the sword warily. Rand was one with the sword. He could feel every particle of it, tiny bits, 1,000 times too small to be seen with the eye. And he could feel the power that suffused him running into the sword, as well, threading through the intricate matrices wrought by Aes Sedai during the War of Power. It was another voice he heard then, Lan's voice. There will come a time when you want something more than you want life, Ingtar's voice. It is every man's right to choose when to sheathe the sword. The picture formed of Egwene, collared, living her life as a damane. Threads of my life in danger. Egwene. If Hawkwing gets into Falme, he can save her. Before he knew it, he had taken the first position of heron wading in the rushes, balanced on one foot, sword raised high, open and defenseless. Death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain. Ba'alzamon stared at him. Why are you grinning like an idiot, fool? Do you not know I can destroy you utterly? Rand felt a calmness beyond that of the void. I will never serve you, Father of Lies. In 1,000 lives, I never have. I know that. I'm sure of it. Come. It is time to die." Baalzamon's eyes widened. For an instant they were furnaces that put sweat on Rand's face. The blackness behind Baalzamon boiled up around him, and his face hardened. "Then die, worm." He struck with the staff, as with the spear. Rand screamed as he felt it pierce his side, burning like a white-hot poker. The void trembled, but he held on with the last of his strength and drove the heron-mark blade into Baalzamon's heart. Baalzamon screamed, and the dark behind him screamed. The world exploded in fire. First, Flaming Min struggled up the cobblestone street, pushing through crowds that stood white-faced and staring, those who were not screaming hysterically. A few ran, seemingly without any idea of where they were running, but most moved like poorly handled puppets, more afraid to go than to stay. She searched the faces, hoping to find Egwene, or Elaine, or Nynaeve, but all she saw were Falme. And there was something drawing her on, as surely as if she had a string tied to her. Once she turned to look back. Seanchan's ships burned in the harbour, and she could see more in flames off the harbour mouth. Many squarish vessels were already small against the setting sun, sailing west as fast as Damane could make the winds drive them, and one small ship was beating away from the harbour, tilting to catch a wind to take it along the coast. Spray. She did not blame Baal Doman for not waiting longer, not after what she had seen. She thought it a wonder he had remained so long. There was one Seanchan vessel in the harbour, not burning, though its towers were black from fires already extinguished. As the tall ship crept toward the harbour mouth, a figure on horseback suddenly appeared around the cliffs, skirting the harbour, riding across the water. Min's mouth fell open. Silver glittered as the figure raised a bow. A streak of silver lanced to the boxy ship, a gleaming line connecting bow and ship. With a roar she could hear even at that distance. Fire engulfed the foretower anew, and sailors rushed about the deck. Min blinked, and when she looked again, the mounted figure was gone. The ship still slowly made way toward the ocean, the crew fighting the flames. She gave herself a shake and started to climb the street again. She had seen too much that day for someone riding a horse across water to be more than a momentary distraction, even if it really was Brigitte and her bow. And Artur Hawkwing. I did see him. I did. In front of one of the tall stone buildings, she stopped uncertainly, ignoring the people who brushed past her as if stunned. It was in there, somewhere, that she had to go. She rushed up the stairs and pushed open the door. No one tried to stop her. As far as she could tell, there was no one in the house. Most of Falme was out in the streets trying to decide whether they had all gone mad together. She went on through the house, into the garden behind, and there he was. Rand lay sprawled on his back under an oak, face pale and eyes closed, left hand gripping a hilt that ended in a foot of blade that appeared to have been melted at the end. His chest rose and fell too slowly, and not with the regular rhythm of someone breathing normally. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she went to see what she could do for him. First was to get rid of that stub of a blade. He could hurt himself, or her, if he started thrashing. She pried his hand open and winced when the hilt stuck to his palm. She tossed it aside with a grimace. The heron on the hilt had branded itself into his hand, but it was obvious to her that that was not what had him lying there unconscious. How did he come by that? Nynaeve can put a salve on it later. A hasty examination showed that most of his cuts and bruises were not new. At least the blood had had time to dry in a crust, and the bruises had started to turn yellow at the edges. But there was a hole burned through his coat on the left side. Opening his coat, she pulled up his shirt. Breath whistled through her teeth. There was a wound burned into his side, but it had cauterized itself. What shook her was the feel of his flesh. It had a touch of ice in it. He made the air seem warm. Grabbing his shoulders, she began to drag him toward the house. He hung limp, a dead weight. "Great lummox," she grunted. "You couldn't be short and light, could you? You have to have all that leg and shoulder. I ought to let you lie out here." But she struggled up the steps, careful not to bump him any more than she could avoid, and pulled him inside. Leaving him just within the door, she knuckled the small of her back, muttering to herself about the pattern, and made a hasty search. There was a small bedroom in the back of the house, perhaps a servant's room, with a bed piled high with blankets and logs already laid on the hearth. In moments, she had the blankets thrown back and the fire lit, as well as a lamp on the bedside table. Then she went back for Rand. It was no small task getting him to the room or up onto the bed, but she managed it with only a little hard breathing and covered him up. After a moment she stuck a hand under the blankets. She winced and shook her head. The sheets were icy cold. He had no body warmth for the blankets to hold. With a put-upon sigh, she wriggled under the covers beside him. Finally, she put his head on her arm. His eyes were still closed, his breathing ragged, but she thought he would be dead by the time she came back if she left to find Nynaeve. He needs an Aes Sedai, she thought. All I can do is try to give him a little warmth. For a time, she studied his face. It was only his face she saw. She could never read anyone who was not conscious. I like older men, she told him. I like men with education and wit. I have no interest in farms or sheep or shepherds. Especially boy shepherds. With a sigh, she smoothed back the hair from his face. He had silky hair. But then you aren't a shepherd, are you? Not anymore. Light, why did the pattern have to catch me up with you? Why couldn't I have something safe and simple, like being shipwrecked with no food and a dozen hungry Islemen? There was a sound in the hall, and she raised her head as the door opened. Egwene stood there, staring at them by the light of the fire and the lamp. "Oh," was all she said. Min's cheeks coloured. "Why am I behaving like I've done something wrong? Fool, I? I'm keeping him warm. He is unconscious, and he's as cold as ice." Egwene did not come any further into the room. I felt him pulling at me, needing me. Elaine felt it too. I thought it must be something to do with what he is, but Nynaeve didn't feel anything. She drew a deep, unsteady breath. "Elaine and Nynaeve are getting the horses. We found Baela. The Seanchan left most of their horses behind. Nynaeve says we should go as soon as we can, and... Min, you know what he is, don't you now?" "I know." Min wanted to take her arm from under Rand's head, but she could not make herself move. "I think I do anyway. Whatever he is hurt. I can do nothing for him except keep him warm. Maybe Nynaeve can. Min, you know? You do know that he cannot marry. He isn't safe for any of us, Min." "Speak for yourself," Min said. She pulled Rand's face against her breast. "It's like Elaine said. You tossed him aside for the White Tower. What should you care if I pick him up?" Egwene looked at her for what seemed a long time. Not at Rand, not at all, only at her. She felt her face growing hotter and wanted to look away, but she could not. "I will bring Nynaeve," Egwene said finally, and walked out of the room with her back straight and her head high. Min wanted to call out, to go after her, but she lay there as if frozen. Frustrated tears stung her eyes. "It's what has to be. I know it. I read it in all of them. Light, I don't want to be part of this." "It's all your fault," she told Rand, still shape. "No, it isn't. But you will pay for it, I think. We're all caught like flies in a spider web. What if I told her there's another woman yet to come, one she doesn't even know? For that matter, what would you think of that, my fine Lord Shepherd? You aren't bad-looking at all, but—" "Light, I don't even know if I am the one you'll choose. I don't know if I want you to choose me. Or will you try to dandle all three of us on your knee? It may not be your fault, Randall Thor, but it isn't fair." "Not Randall Thor," said a musical voice from the door. "Luz, Therin Telamon, the Dragon Reborn." Min stared. She was the most beautiful woman Min had ever seen, with pale, smooth skin and long black hair and eyes as dark as night. Her dress was a white that would make snow seem dingy, belted in silver. All her jewelry was silver. Min felt herself bristle. "What do you mean? Who are you?" The woman came to stand over the bed. Her movements were so graceful, Min felt a stab of envy, though she had never before envied any woman, anything, and smoothed Rand's hair as if Min were not there. "He doesn't believe yet, I think. He knows, but he does not believe. I've guided his steps, pushed him, pulled him, enticed him. He was always stubborn, but this time I will shape him. Ishmael thinks he controls events, but I do." Her finger brushed Rand's forehead as if drawing a mark. Min thought uneasily that it looked like the dragon's fang. Rand stirred, murmuring, the first sound or movement he had made since she found him. "Who are you?" Min demanded. The woman looked at her, only looked, but she found herself shrinking back into the pillows, clutching Rand to her fiercely. I'm called Lanfear, girl." Min's mouth was abruptly so dry she could not have spoken if her life depended on it. One of the Forsaken. No. Light no. All she could do was shake her head. The denial made Lanfear smile. "Luz Therin was and is mine, girl. Tend him well for me until I come for him." And she was gone. Min gaped. One moment she was there, then she was gone. Min discovered she was hugging Rand's unconscious form tightly. She wished she did not feel as if she wanted him to protect her. Gaunt face set with grim purpose, Baia galloped with the sinking sun behind him and never looked back. He had seen all he needed to, all he could, with that accursed fog. The Legion was dead, Lord Captain Geoffram Bornhold was dead, and there was only one explanation for that. Dark friends had betrayed them, dark friends like that Perrin of the Two Rivers. That word he had to carry to Dane Bornhold, the Lord Captain's son, with the Children of the Light watching Tar Valon. But he had worse to tell, and to none less than Padron Niall himself. He had to tell what he had seen in the sky above Falme. He flogged his horse with his reins and never looked back. What was meant to be? Rand opened his eyes and found himself staring up at sunlight, slanting through the branches of a leatherleaf, its broad, tough leaves still green despite the time of year. The wind stirring the leaves carried a hint of snow come nightfall. He lay on his back, and he could feel blankets covering him under his hands. His coat and shirt seemed to be gone, but something was binding his chest and his left side hurt. He turned his head, and Min was sitting there on the ground watching him. He almost did not know her wearing skirts. She smiled uncertainly. "Min, it is you. Where did you come from? Where are we?" His memory came in flashes and patches. Old things he could remember, but the last few days seemed like bits of broken mirror spinning through his mind, showing glimpses that were gone before he could see them clearly. "From Falme," she said. "We're 5 days east of there now, and you've been asleep all that time." Falme. More memory. Matt had blown the Horn of Valere. Horn. Egwene. Is she? Did they free her? He held his breath. "I don't know what you mean, but she's free. We freed her ourselves." "We? I don't understand. She's free. At least she is. Nynaeve and Elaine and me." "Nynaeve? Elaine? How? You were all in Falme." He struggled to sit up, but she pushed him back down easily and stayed there, hands on his shoulders, eyes intent on his face. "Where is she?" "Gone." Min's face coloured. "They're all gone. Egwene and Nynaeve and Matt and Hurin and Verin. Hurin didn't want to leave you, really. They're on their way to Tar Valon. Egwene and Nynaeve back to their training in the tower, and Matt for whatever the Aes Sedai have to do about that dagger. They took the Horn of Valere with them. I can't believe I actually saw it." "Gone," he muttered. She didn't even wait till I woke up. The red in Min's cheeks deepened, and she sat back, staring at her lap. He raised his hands to run them over his face and stopped, staring at his palms in shock. There was a heron branded across his left palm too now, to match the one on his right, every line clean and true. Once the heron to set his path, twice the heron to name him true. "No, they are gone," she said. "Saying no won't change it." He shook his head. Something told him the pain in his side was important. He could not remember being injured, but it was important. He started to lift his blankets to look, but she slapped his hands away. "You can't do any good with that. It isn't healed all the way yet." Verine tried healing, but she said it didn't work the way it should. She hesitated, nibbling her lip. "Moraine says Nynaeve must have done something, or you wouldn't have lived till we carried you to Verin. But Nynaeve says she was too frightened to light a candle. There is something wrong with your wound. You have to wait for it to heal naturally." She seemed troubled. "Moraine is here?" He barked a bitter laugh. "When you said Verin was gone, I thought I was free of Aes Sedai again." "I am here," Moraine said. She appeared, all in blue and as serene as if she stood in the White Tower, strolling up to stand over him. Min was frowning at the Aes Sedai. Rand had the odd feeling that she meant to protect him from Moiraine. "I wish you weren't here," he told the Aes Sedai. "As far as I am concerned, you can go back to wherever you've been hiding and stay there." "I have not been hiding," Moraine said calmly. "I've been doing what I could here on Tommen Head and in Falme. It was little enough, though I learnt much. I failed to rescue 2 of my sisters before the Seanchan herded them onto the ships with the leashed ones, but I did what I could. What you could. You sent Vereen to shepherd me, but I know sheep, Moraine. You said I could go where I wanted, and I mean to go where you are not. I did not send Vereen. Moraine frowned. She did that on her own. You are of interest to a great many people, Rand. Did Fane find you, or you him? The sudden change of topic took him by surprise. Fane? No. A fine hero I make. I tried to rescue Egwene, and Min did it before me. Fane said he would hurt Emond's Field if I didn't face him, and I never laid eyes on him. Did he go with the Seanchan too? Moraine shook her head. I do not know. I wish I did. But it is as well you did not find him, not until you know what he is, at least. He's a dark friend, more than that, worse than that. Padan Fane was the Dark One's creature to the depths of his soul, but I believe that in Shadar Logoth he fell afoul of Mordeath, who was as vile in fighting the Shadow as ever the Shadow itself was. Mordeath tried to consume Fane's soul to have a human body again, but found a soul that had been touched directly by the Dark One, and what resulted? What resulted was neither Padan Fane nor Mordeath, but something far more evil, a blend of the two. Fane, let us call him that, is more dangerous than you can believe. You might not have survived such a meeting, and if you had, you might have been worse than turned to the Shadow. If he is alive, if he did not go with the Seanchan, I have to. He cut off as she produced his heron-marked sword from under her cloak. The blade ended abruptly a foot from the hilt, as if it had been melted. Memory came crashing back. I killed him, he said softly. This time I killed him. Moraine put the ruined sword aside like the useless thing it now was, and wiped her hands together. The Dark One is not slain so easily. The mere fact that he appeared in the sky above Falme is more than merely troubling. He should not be able to do that, if he is bound as we believe. And if he is not, why has he not destroyed us all? Min stirred uneasily. In the sky? Ram said in wonder. Both of you, Moraine said. Your battle took place across the sky, in full view of every soul in Falme. Perhaps in other towns on Tomenhead too, if half what I hear is to be believed. We saw it all, Min said in a faint voice. She put a hand over one of Rand's comfortingly. Moraine reached under her cloak again and came out with a rolled parchment, one of the large sheets such as the street artists in Falme used. The chalks were a little smudged when she unfurled it, but the picture was still clear enough. A man whose face was a solid flame fought with a staff against another, with a sword among clouds where lightning danced, and behind them rippled the dragon banner. Rand's face was easily recognizable. How many have seen that? He demanded. Tear it up. Tear it up. Burn it. The Aes Sedai let the parchment roll back up. It would do no good, Rand. I bought that 2 days gone, in a village we passed through. There are hundreds of them, perhaps thousands, and the tale is being told everywhere of how the dragon battled the Dark One in the skies above Falme. Rand looked at Min. She nodded reluctantly and squeezed his hand. She looked frightened, but she did not flinch away. I wonder if that's why Egwene left. She was right to leave. The pattern weaves itself around you even more tightly, Moraine said. You need me now more than ever. I don't need you, he said harshly, and I don't want you. I will not have anything to do with this. He remembered being called Luz Therin, not only by Baalzamon, but by Artur Hawkwing. I won't. Light, the dragon, is supposed to break the world again, to tear everything apart. I will not be the dragon. You are what you are, Moraine said. Already you stir the world. The Black Adger has revealed itself for the first time in 2,000 years. Arad Doman and Tarabon were on the brink of war, and it will be worse when news of Falme reaches them. Caerhien is in civil war. I did nothing in Caerhien, he protested. You can't blame that on me. Doing nothing was always a ploy in the great game, she said with a sigh, and especially as they play it now. You were the spark, and Caerhien exploded like an illuminator's firework. What do you think will happen when word of Falme reaches Arad Doman and Tarabon? There have always been men willing to proclaim for any man who called himself the Dragon, but they have never before had such signs as this. There is more. Here. She tossed a pouch on his chest. He hesitated a moment before opening it. Within lay shards of what seemed to be black and white glazed pottery. He had seen their like before. Another seal on the Dark One's prison, he mumbled. Min gasped. Her grip on his hand sought comfort now, rather than offering it. 2, Moraine said. 3 of the 7 are broken now. The one I had, and 2 I found in the High Lord's dwelling in Falme. When all 7 are broken, perhaps even before, the patch men put over the hole they drilled into the prison the Creator made will be torn asunder, and the Dark One will once more be able to put his hand through that hole and touch the world. And the only hope of the world is that the Dragon Reborn will be there to face him. Min tried to stop Rand from throwing back the blankets, but he pushed her gently aside. I need to walk. She helped him up, but with a great many sighs and grumbles about him making his wound worse. He discovered that his chest was wrapped round with bandages. Min draped one of the blankets about his shoulders like a cloak. For a moment he stood staring down at the heron-marked sword, what was left of it, lying on the ground. Tam's sword, my father's sword. Reluctantly, more reluctantly than he had ever done anything in his life, he let go of the hope that he would discover Tam really was his father. It felt as if he were tearing his heart out. But it did not change the way he felt about Tam, and Emond's Field was the only home he had ever known. Fane is the important thing. I have one duty left, stopping him. The 2 women had to support him, one on either arm, down to where the campfires were already burning, not far from a road of hard-packed dirt. Loyal was there, reading a book, To Sail Beyond the Sunset, and Perrin, staring into one of the fires. The Shienarans were making preparations for their evening meal. Lan sat under a tree, sharpening his belt knife. The warder gave Rand a careful look, then a nod. There was something else, too. The dragon banner rippled on the wind over the middle of the camp. Somewhere they had found a proper staff to replace Perrin's sapling. Rand demanded, "What is that doing out where anybody who passes by can see it?" "It is too late to hide, Rand," Moraine said. "It was always too late for you to hide. You don't have to put up a sign saying, 'Here I am,' either. I'll never find Fane if somebody kills me because of that banner." He turned to Loyal and Perrin. "I'm glad you stayed. I would have understood if you hadn't." "Why would I not stay?" Loyal said. "You are even more Ta'veren than I believed, true, but you are still my friend. I hope you are still my friend." His ears twitched uncertainly. "I am," Rand said, "for as long as it's safe for you to be around me, and even after, too." The Ogier's grin nearly split his face in 2. "I'm staying as well," Perrin said. There was a note of resignation or acceptance in his voice. "The wheel weaves us tight in the pattern, Rand. Who would have thought it, back in Emond's Field? The Shienarans were gathering around. To Rand's surprise, they all fell to their knees. Every one of them watched him. "We would pledge ourselves to you," Uno said. The others kneeling with him nodded. "Your oaths are to Ingtar and Lord Agelmar," Rand protested. "Ingtar died well, Uno. He died so the rest of us could escape with the horn." There was no need to tell them or anyone else the rest. He hoped that Ingtar had found the light again. "Tell Lord Agelmar that when you return to Faldara." "It is said," the one-eyed man said carefully, "that when the dragon is reborn he will break all oaths, shatter all ties. Nothing holds us now. We would give our oaths to you." He drew his sword and laid it before him, hilt toward Rand, and the rest of the Shienarans did the same. "You battled the Dark One," Masema said. Masema, who hated him. Masema, who looked at him as if seeing a vision of the light. "I saw you, Lord Dragon. I saw. I am your man, to the death." His dark eyes shone with fervor. "You must choose, Rand," Moraine said. "The world will be broken whether you break it or not. Tarmangaidon will come, and that alone will tear the world apart. Will you still try to hide from what you are and leave the world to face the last battle undefended? Choose." They were all watching him, all waiting. Death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain. He made his decision. By ship and horse the stories spread, by merchant wagon and man on foot, told and retold, changing yet always alike at the heart, to Arad-Doman and Tarabon and beyond, of signs and portents in the sky above Falme. And men proclaimed themselves for the dragon, and other men struck them down and were struck down in turn. Other tales spread of a column that rode from the sinking sun across Ormouth Plain. 100 bordermen, it was said. No, 1,000. No, 1,000 heroes come back from the grave to answer the call of the Horn of Valere. 10,000. They had destroyed a legion of the Children of the Light in Tyre. They had thrown Artur Hawkwing's returned armies back into the sea. They were Artur Hawkwing's armies returned. Toward the mountains they rode, toward the dawn. Yet one thing every tale had the same. At their head rode a man whose face had been seen in the sky above Falme, and they rode under the banner of the Dragon Reborn. And men cried out to the Creator, saying, O light of the heavens, light of the world, let the promised one be born of the mountain, according to the prophecies, as he was in ages past, and will be in ages to come. Let the Prince of the Morning sing to the land, the green things will grow, and the valleys give forth lambs. Let the arm of the Lord of the Dawn shelter us from the dark, and the great sword of justice defend us. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. From Driana to Calamon, the cycle of the dragon, author unknown, the fourth age.